My sister stole my wedding date, venue, and my family's support without knowing that my fiancé was the heir to an art empire. My sister looked at me directly and said, "You can cry later. This day belongs to me." She took my wedding date and venue without knowing my fiancé's identity. The truth ruined her totally. You don't mind rescheduling, right? It's just a small wedding. Mine's going to be a real event. My younger sister Mary stole my date, venue, and every respect for my family 3 weeks before my wedding. She specifically stated that. Call me Nora Sinclair. I teach visual arts at a small Portland liberal arts college at 35. I don't brag. Every filtered selfie doesn't have thousands of followers, and I don't follow trends. Mary's world is that. A 28-year-old beauty and lifestyle influencer, whatever that means nowadays. My parents like her. Always did. I'm quiet. Someone who valued stability over ambition. Theirs, not mine. Last October, I met Julian, an architectural designer, at a guest lecture and got engaged. He was kind, respectful, and noticed things I overlooked. Sketchbooks, long rainy Willamette River hikes, and black coffee were our favorites. I didn't want a big wedding when we were married. A nearby art museum hosts small weddings, so I chose it. Julian first declared his love over there. Even though it was small, the gallery was important. We booked it for May 20th at 3 p.m. over a year in advance. Everything was planned. The invitations went out. A former student made my dress, caterer, and florist. Our day was coming. Then Mary called. She insisted on a family supper at our parents' since she had crucial news. When I entered and saw the champagne popping, I should have known something was wrong. Mary sparkled and jumped in her chair. My parents greeted her with grins like she had declared world peace. "I'm getting married," she jumped. "To Aiden." The couple has dated for 6 months. He is a flashy advertising professional with perfect teeth who parks his Porsche like a character. Although confused, I added, "That's fast," to hide my confusion. "Oh, and guess what? We're getting married on May 20th. Isn't that crazy?" I chilled. "What do you mean, the 20th? I responded hesitantly. "That's my wedding day." Mary laughed like I joked. "I know, but you didn't copy the date, Nora. Besides, you can reschedule, right? Your wedding's just small. Ours is going to be huge. We booked the Armitage Hotel. Aiden's uncle pulled strings to get us to the ballroom. It was the only available date." Falling heart. The Armitage was a city aristocratic neighborhood. More importantly, why my date? I looked at my parents, possibly expecting a response. Protect me? My father shrugged. "Maybe it's best if you adjust. Mary's wedding will have more guests, more press. It's better for the family." "The press?" My mother spoke too. "Nora, don't be difficult, your ceremony is more personal. You can move it to the next weekend, everyone will understand." Nothing made sense. I blinked as my relatives virtually wiped my nuptials in real time. I stood up. "I'm not rescheduling, we planned this over a year ago." Mary's smile faded. "Don't be selfish." I wanted to shout. I took my suitcase and departed. Mom called me. "Think about what's best for the family." That night, I told Julian everything. He took my hand, listened, and briefly said, "We'll figure this out." And I trusted him. I wanted him to exist. However, the gallery coordinator called me the next morning. "Nora, I'm so sorry, but we've just been informed of a last-minute change. The gallery is no longer available on May 20th. "Oh," I gasped. "What? Why?" A pause. "It was booked under Mary Sinclair's name." My sister virtually seized my venue. I dropped the phone. My hand shook. The globe seemed to be tilting, and I was the only one falling. I realized this wasn't a coincidence. Mary was more than my date. She eliminated me. She didn't know Julian's real identity. Our next move. I stood in the midst of our small kitchen clutching the counter edge as if it were my only support. Still hearing the gallery coordinator's words. It was booked under Mary Sinclair's name. Not only did she take my date, she seized the place where Julian and I had poured our hearts out, where we first met, where I anticipated walking down the aisle with everyone who knew our tale. She dismissed it like it didn't exist. When Julian entered with 2 coffees, he halted at my face. "No need to speak." "She took the gallery," I whispered. Julian dropped the mugs and crossed the room. "We'll find another place," he whispered. "No," I said. "You don't get it. This wasn't about logistics. This was personal." She waited until everything was set. Then she made her move. I knew Mary. Her grin was sweet but fake. The urge to be central drove it. She wasn't happy till the spotlight shone. And everyone disappeared into darkness. That spotlight was her birthright in our family. My parents reacted as expected when I told them what happened. Dad jokes, "Well, perhaps you should have completed the deposit earlier." I did. She outbid. Mom didn't apologize. It's just a venue, Nora. It's not worth causing drama between sisters. Be the bigger person. The bigger person. Always me. The silent one always. An older one. The one who lowered to let others shine. But something inside me exploded this time. I stopped answering Mary's texts. Blocking her on Instagram. After she posted photos of her dream venue reveal, which included the area I named my home, I removed my year-long wedding board. I told Julian, "I don't want to do this anymore." He looked up from his sketchbook. "Do what? Pretend like everything's fine? Pretend like I can just smile through it while they erase me?" Julian was quiet. He closed his notebook, stood up, and grabbed his phone. "Come with me," he ordered. We traveled silently for over an hour. I didn't ask about our destination. I think part of me was indifferent. I felt like my heart had been removed and left on the gallery floor because I was psychologically and emotionally exhausted. We reached an ivy-lined gate. A security guy opened it when he saw Julian. "Where are we?" I said finally. Julian only smiled. "Somewhere no one can take from you." We entered a private art estate via a long stone driveway. A large contemporary glass pavilion is hidden amid a forest. Private gardens, indoor gallery wings, and an architectural deity-created reflecting pool are included. "Julian, what is this place?" I had never seen him face me so calmly. "I own it." I blinked. "What?" "I haven't been completely honest with you, Nora," he said. "I design for myself. I have a studio, investments. I've kept a low profile because I've seen how people change when money enters the room." I was astonished by him. He continued. "This is my personal gallery, and if you want it, it's yours. For the wedding. For anything." Sitting still, I was astonished. He was giving me something, not impressing me. He gave me options. Honor. Strength. I pretended to smile through tears. Mary is going to lose her mind. Julian grins. She has no idea what's coming. The emotional roller coaster dropped again when I thought it had peaked. I got a phone notice that night. Aiden, Mary's fiancé. He followed me on Instagram recently. It was odd because we never spoke. A straight message follows. "You deserve better than what they did to you. Can we talk?" I looked at my phone for a minute. "You deserve better than what they did to you. Can we talk?" From Aiden. Mary's fiancé. I thought that was a mistake. Maybe he meant to send it to someone else. Maybe he was just stirring things up. Though deliberate, the message remained unambiguous. Julian entered after I locked the screen. He offered me champagne and asked, "You okay?" I nodded reluctantly. "Yeah, just trying to process everything." I hid the message from him. "Not yet." Instead, I told Aiden one word. "Why?" His response was quick. "Because I'm not blind. I see what's happening, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm the next one being used." Like a chest punch. I understood that, not because I liked Aiden. That moment when you realize a loved one may be tricking you. "Could we meet?" Nothing unusual. Only coffee. In public. I agreed against my better judgment. We met in a downtown cafe the next afternoon. I wore a hoodie and sunglasses to hide. He appeared in a black blazer, looking more like a job interviewer than a loving fiancé. Immediately, he sat. "I didn't know she stole your venue," he said. "She told me it was available, that you decided to delay your wedding for budget reasons." It nearly made me laugh. "She lied." "Obviously," he moaned and massaged his face. "That's what I'm starting to realize. This whole wedding, it's like a marketing campaign for her. Everything's about the optics. She keeps pushing for me to get sponsorships for the ceremony. She even hired a videographer who's worked on reality shows." My stomach twisted. "Last week, she asked if we could pretend to have met at a beach in Bali so it sounds more exotic." "What?" I exclaimed. "Yeah. She said our real story wasn't share-worthy enough." Silence fell for a while. Drinks and music were muffled by my chest tightening. Then Aiden bent more. While whispering, "I also found out something else," he said. "She has a burner phone." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "She hides it in her makeup drawer. I saw her texting someone late at night. Laughing, deleting messages? When I asked, she got defensive. Said I was paranoid. I stared at him with icy knowledge. You think she's cheating? He shrugged. I don't know. But I don't trust her anymore. And I can't ignore this sick feeling that I'm just another prop in her perfect image. I was speechless. I expected drama. Yes. However, this was going apart faster than I could keep up. Aiden looked me in the eye as we parted. Whatever you're planning, I want to help. That night, I told Julian everything. Messages. A gathering. Phone that burns. He wasn't angry, which surprised me. He looked ready. This is why we don't retreat, he said. They wanted to humiliate you. Now we show them who you really are. The days after were frantic. Julian called softly. Distinct ones. He asked me to trust him. And I did. The invitations followed. We left first. Manually delivered. Elegantly printed with gold leaf and calligraphy. There was more. Each one had a secret RSVP code for the Redwood Pavilion, a luxury estate I had never heard of until Julian introduced me. He said it was in his circle. Conversations were underway. Then it happened. Phone call from Mary. After weeks of silence. She wasn't mad. She was arrogant, sobbing. Hey, sis. Just wanted to let you know we're releasing our wedding trailer on social media this weekend. Thought you'd want a heads up, since, yours might look a bit underwhelming in comparison. I stayed mute. Allow her to talk. Before releasing her huge video, 2 days later, they seized her. Our wedding guest list was leaked on an industry portal and included several celebrities. Within hours, it went viral. Mary's worst fear arrived at home. Her message was all caps. Why is Aiden refusing to finalize our guest list? What did you tell him? I remained silent. Since Julian was printing the final seating layout in the studio. One seat was reserved for a VIP, Mary, the magazine's head editor, had pleaded for her inclusion for years. Comments on number 2 will reveal what occurs when Mary understands who has permanently stolen her spotlight. I always thought my wedding would be magical. In fact, retribution is more fulfilling. The morning of our wedding was very quiet. Portland had a bright sky, and the Redwood Pavilion was surrounded by trees that allowed in sunlight. Electricity pulsed in the cool, fresh air. Finally, I felt stable after weeks. My phone vibrated with missed calls, Instagram tags, and texts. Finally, Mary saw the article. Architectural heir Julian Redwood to marry local artist at secret estate event, A-list guests confirmed. She had no idea Julian was Redwood descended. She had no idea how much larger our arena was than the one she tried to take. Who knew that the quiet, small girl she had spent her life snoozing over would suddenly shine brightly in front of Portland's elite? She also had no idea who else was attending. By noon, art world celebrities, architects, media personalities, and the governor's wife arrived in luxury cars on the estate. Julian made them feel welcome. I gazed in shock from the bridal suite window. A knock followed. It was Aiden. His hand shook when he offered me a little velvet package, despite his calm attitude and clean clothes. I asked, "What's this?" He said, "A little insurance, checking the door for anyone looking." She doesn't know I kept it. A flash disk was inside. Aiden bent. Texts, voice recordings, video proof? She planned to sabotage your wedding, admitted it was revenge for you stealing attention. Tried to bribe the gallery coordinator to bump you off the calendar. My throat is parched. Continuing. She told me the only way she could shine was if your light was off. His eyes darkened. She didn't just want to marry me. She wanted to beat you. The flash disk was closely held. Why are you giving me this? He said. Because I'm done being used, quietly. And because, part of me hopes this ends with her learning something. Julian arrived calmly a few moments later. It's time. Mary declared 2 p.m. to be her own time, and the ceremony began then. However, today was mine. To the sound of a string quartet, I walked down the aisle past people I never believed would support me. The water poured through my clothes. My heart beat steadily. Julian took my hand as his own when I reached him. The real revenge happened at the reception. Julian stood to toast with his glass. "Thank you all for joining us on this incredible day," remarked. "Today isn't just about love. It's about truth, about integrity, and about standing up when someone tries to silence you." Room went quiet. He continued. "My wife, my brilliant, kind, resilient wife, had her wedding nearly stolen from her. The venue. The date. Even her dignity. But instead of shrinking, she rose." He regarded me. I nodded. Julian pointed to the AV crew corner. He said, "And today, we'd like to share the full story." Behind us, the screen animated. Mary spoke over the speakers. "She'll cancel, she always does. She's soft. That gallery is mine. I don't care what it takes." Gasps filled the hall. She sent the coordinator screenshots of her texts. Screenshots of her telling Aiden, "This is my year. She can cry later." Several visitors seemed appalled. Others nodded. They have seen cruelty disguised by beauty and charm before. Finally, Aiden's hidden video started playing. Mary and Buddy laugh. If she really cared about that guy, she'd step aside. She's not even marrying for love, Julianne. He's just some artsy dude with no money. My wedding is the real deal. The video ended. Silence followed. Let's cheer. Roaring, long, unrelenting. Doors blasted open then. In the back was Mary. She smudged makeup. Still wearing her handmade gown. They are alone. She checked it out. Noticed the eyes. The verdict. The truth. Next, her mother, my mother, exclaimed, "Mary, enough. Leave." Everyone turned. Mary's expression was bland. "What? You embarrass this family enough," Mom said. "This isn't your day." Those who loved the golden child abandoned her. She hurried outside crying. I got a letter 3 days after the wedding. Not an email. Not SMS. A real envelope. Handwritten. No return address. Only one paper was inside. "This isn't over. You stole everything from me, just wait." I should have been scared. But I wasn't. Because Mary had lost her 2 most valuable possessions. Her photo. Her authority too. Her sponsorships plummeted once the wedding video went online, especially the portion where she mocked Julian and admitted she ruined my plans. Her management company cut ties publicly. And the luxury skincare line she was partnering with? Lost. Last to strike was Aiden. He stated in a somber, courteous manner that competing ideals had canceled the engagement. He donated their postponed wedding money to a women's shelter in my name. Julian and I received letters from designers, painters, and even classmates I hadn't spoken to in years congratulating me for speaking out against the subtle cruelty that so many people allow. Just when I thought we were done, Mary tried again. She visited my college. In mid-lecture, my department head knocked and dragged me into the corridor. "She's here," he grumbled. "It's urgent." I entered the faculty lounge to find her pacing like a stuck animal. She looked nothing like the girl on social media. She had messy hair. She buttoned her expensive coat wrong. Her normally immaculate nails had broken edges. "Nora," she raged. "You need to fix this." I blinked. "Excuse me? You ruined my life. That video, you had no right. It was a private conversation." I said, "It was you, Mary," calmly. "Your words. Your actions." She moved forward. "I had everything. And now I'm nothing. Are you happy?" "No," I whispered. "I'm not happy you're suffering. I'm just finally done being the one who always steps aside." She glanced at me as if it were new. Perhaps she didn't. She played with me, but I wasn't her sister. I finally made my own choice. That was her last mistake. While lunging at me and grabbing my wrist, she shouted, "I'll make sure you lose it all too." Campus security was notified. The witnesses included a professor, 2 students, and security footage. I filed a restraining order later that week. The local newspapers reported, "Former influencer accused of threats, public breakdown at university." She supposedly moved in with our parents. The same parents who finally persuaded her to seek help rather than explain her conduct. All her social media was deleted, her accounts vanished. Her name now conjures stillness after being a hashtag. And I? Julian and I just returned from our honeymoon in Florence. The sun. The art. The tranquil cafes. I never expected so much. My department offered me a promotion. My program supports young artists who have been bullied from creating. Looking at Julian at night, I realize, I got more than justice. I was free. Freedom from analogies, absence of coercion. Freedom from fame's shadow. Mary tried to steal everything. However, ultimately, she met all my needs. An argument for finally choosing myself. Never return that. Comment on the second if you think Mary got what she deserved. My twin got a Jeep for graduation. I only got a lottery ticket. But it won $5 million. Am I the asshole for keeping it a secret? For my brother's graduation, my parents got him a brand new Jeep. I only received a lotto ticket. The scent of burgers on the grill every weekend, split-level homes with American flags flapping on porches, and neighbors who smiled at you but started gossiping the moment you left made growing up in the peaceful suburbs of Chicago feel like living in every teen movie ever filmed. My relatives? Traditional middle class. Dad was a logistics worker. Mom balanced excessive couponing with PTA meetings. Next came Jake, my twin brother, and me. Jake was that guy, prom king material, high school football standout, and somehow always tan, even in February. At least once a week, teachers would give him that "you'll go far" speech, and girls would trip over themselves around him. Me? Stacking shelves to save money for college was me, the twin with the Target name tag. I was in the high school chess club on Tuesday nights, if Jake was in the Super Bowl. But no ill will. Well, a bit, perhaps. Like when you know your brother stole the last piece of pizza without even checking, we were connected in that strange twin telepathy manner. But I just wanted to get out, while Jake revealed his attention. For me, college was more than simply a place to study, it was a means of escape. Jake's never-ending parties, my late-night essays, and our parents' intense graduation preparations made up my senior year. Mom got lost in Pinterest boards for the perfect graduation celebration, complete with themed cupcakes, fairy lights, and an excessively journey-themed playlist. Dad? Whether renting a margarita machine would make him the cool dad or get him kicked out of the next HOA meeting was the subject of his internal conflict. We always knew he'd make it big, said random neighbors, and Jake received months of congratulations after securing a full-ride football scholarship to Michigan. Me? I was keeping track of the days till I got out of state college. It was my opportunity to be just Zach at last, even though it wasn't the Ivy League. Not the twin of Jake, just me, not the other one. The days leading up to graduation were quite stressful. Jake was inundated with texts from girls organizing post-graduation vacations, in addition to rehearsals and parties. I worked double shifts at Target, and my potential roommate sent me an email asking whether I was okay with bringing a small refrigerator. Fantastic moments. Jake and I ended up on the roof of the garage one evening while Mom worried about seating charts and Dad tried to decide how many hot dogs was too much. It was where we were. A spot where there would be no noise and we could just be two brothers. Jake was excited about football glory, tailgating, and living in a dorm. I pretended not to imagine a world in which I wasn't only his sidekick as I listened. Everyone was excited about the surprises graduation would bring, and the big day was quickly approaching. Jake? He most likely anticipated something from a sports film. Me? My breath wasn't held. But now that I think about it, I should have known better. Jake was going to get something big, I knew. I simply never imagined that my gift would completely upend the world. It was like entering one of those high school films that always looked too good to be true on graduation day. The gym was decorated with gold and blue streamers, huge balloons that said Class of 2024, and a photo booth where people waited in line to take photographs wearing fake diplomas and huge sunglasses. The space was still haunted by the scent of cafeteria pizza from previous lunches, but nobody seemed to mind. Naturally, Jake was in his element as he grinned effortlessly and received applause from his peers as if he had just won the Super Bowl. Speeches that attempted too hard to be amusing, a choir performance that left me wondering whether any of them had practiced, and me sitting there contemplating my next Target shift made the ceremony itself drag on longer than a line at Starbucks on a Monday morning. With the kind of fervor typically reserved for lottery winners, Jake's name was called. It was more along the lines of, "Oh, right, him too." At least I didn't trip while crossing the stage, though. Little victories. The mayhem that followed was unbelievable. Mom was crying as if we were leaving for Mars. Dad is clumsily recording every second with his phone. I was pulled into hugs that went on for far too long by relatives I hardly knew. Jake's fan club mobbed him. Like I was in the NFL myself, I largely avoided questions about my future and nodded along with idle talk. At home, our backyard appeared to have been lifted straight out of a Pinterest board, complete with fairy lights, a table piled high with mini sliders, chips, and hot dogs, and a cooler filled with enough Coca-Cola to last through the night. Jake's group, all wearing polos and suspiciously new Class of 2024 t-shirts, arrived like a wave, each one louder than the previous. Next door, I saw Mr. Thompson smuggling another plate of sliders while feigning to socialize. Jake, most likely, made the decision that hiring a limo was the best course of action. The next thing I knew, we were huddled inside, listening to old songs from a playlist someone had discovered on Spotify from the early 2000s, stopping at Taco Bell and Starbucks because, apparently, a graduation night wouldn't be complete without nachos and coffee. Jake took in everything, including the constant attention, the selfies, and the giggles. Me? I relaxed while drinking my Coke, making jokes, and pondering whether or not anyone paid any attention to me. We held our drinks like Oscars during the traditional Starbucks photo op. And for a brief time, I thought perhaps this was my chance as well. When the celebration reached its climax at home and the fairy lights began to flicker in the muggy night air, Mom and Dad called everyone inside for the moment they had all been anticipating: the presents. Jake appeared about to explode, already envisioning the big surprise our parents had planned for him. Me? All I could hope was that my gift wasn't socks. I was certain that Jake would give me a memorable gift. But it was what I wouldn't get, not what he would, that troubled me. The suspense in the living room was palpable. Jake was literally bouncing off the walls, already seeing himself driving whatever fantastic present our folks had planned. Between sips of Mountain Dew and nibbles of pizza, his companions, stretched across our faded leather couch and half-empty beanbags, muttered estimates. A sports vehicle? A motorbike? A boat perhaps? Surely Jake deserved something ostentatious. Mom gave him a key fob while fighting back tears like we had won the lotto. Louder than a Bears touchdown, the room exploded. Everyone followed Jake like groupies pursuing a rock star as he ran out the door. A new Jeep Wrangler Rubicon was parked in the driveway, shining in the streetlight. From the top down. Shut the doors. The type of vehicle designed to create memories at Lake Michigan while listening to country music. Jake's smile was as big as the skyline of Chicago. As if he was already halfway to the shore, he climbed in and revved the motor. His phone paired with Bluetooth more quickly than my Wi-Fi ever could, and all of a sudden Morgan Wallen began singing about highways and heartbreak. Jake in his classic form. I remained behind, taking it all in. This wasn't shocking. The golden boy was Jake. The hero of the hometown. He would get a Jeep, of course. Dad gave me a shoulder slap as if to warn me of bad news. I was given a little white envelope by Mom. No keys. No big bow, paper only. There was silence in the room. Awkward silence. Trying to convince myself it would be something cool, I opened it. A check for college? Perhaps? Cubs tickets? Perhaps. Within, a $25 gift card to Best Buy, a lotto ticket too. Now for the uncomfortable giggles. The king of terrible timing and my best friend since 3rd grade, Sam, poked me and muttered, "Hey, at least now you can finally buy the Xbox controller you've been complaining about." I made myself laugh. When life gives you a slap in the face disguised as a gift, what else do you do? Jake's pals hardly paid any attention. They were already fighting about who should be shotgun and were too busy cramming themselves into the Jeep. Mom gave me a deep hug while murmuring about the big things that lay ahead, but Jake's shouting that they were going to Dairy Queen and the sound of the Jeep's engine overpowered her words. Dad nodded at me. "You're aware of it." They nod like a chin-up youngster. I sneaked out the back door after shoving the envelope into my pocket. I felt protected on the porch. The sound of lawnmowers in the distance. The subtle aroma of hamburgers from a neighbor's grill. And me, using a coin I discovered in my trousers to scratch a losing lotto ticket. Numbers. I gazed at the gift card as though it had answers. Jake gained liberty, excitement, and limitless opportunities. My target salary was worth more than the plastic I received. The worst part though? Everyone seemed to have anticipated this. As if I were the one who didn't require the large items. Sam probably grabbed 2 Cokes from our cooler and spotted me outside with them. With his trademark sneer, he opened his can and sat next to me. Tough break, man. But hey, no one's going to ask you for rides now. I chuckled. This time it was a real one. As Jake's Jeep vanished into the darkness, we sat there drinking Coke. For the remainder of the celebration, I grinned. Played along. Even, like a nice brother, congratulated Jake. But that night, something broke inside of me. And I was unaware of it at the time. But that little crack? Everything was about to change. I felt as though I had just been benched during the championship game when I got home. Jake was likely planning weekend getaways to Lake Michigan with his pals while driving his brand new Jeep and listening to country music. Me? I was thinking how my life had devolved as I stood in front of the freezer and took out a frozen DiGiorno pizza. As I leaned against the counter and idly browsed Instagram, the microwave hummed. Graduation photos flooded my Facebook, including corny group pictures and caps thrown in the air. Naturally, Jake's Jeep has previously been seen. His caption, "New wheels. New adventures. Lake Michigan. We comin'." Jeep life, inner blessed. I let out a sigh, enjoying the post only by default, despite the fact that it tightened my chest. I was startled out of my doom scroll by the timer's buzzer. After grabbing my pizza, I balanced the plate on my lap and collapsed onto our old plaid couch. The scent of disappointment and pepperoni filled the living room. I browsed Netflix till I came upon The Office. It was my first choice? The awkwardness of Michael Scott somehow lessened the tragedy of my own life. Jim's tricks on Dwight were hilarious. Let's be honest, I might be able to handle being Jake's twin if Pam could handle a relationship with Roy. Memories intruded like unexpected visitors as I chewed on it. On that particular Christmas morning, Jake opened a brand new PlayStation 5, and I received a $50 gift card to Amazon. He dismissed Madden right away. I came to the realization that $50 would not even buy a new controller. Or when our parents took Jake to Disney World to celebrate his outstanding football season the summer after his freshman year. Grandma Doris and her infinite collection of ceramic cats were left behind. What does she consider to be fun? Pointing out my posture and teaching me how to knit. The little things hurt too. On more occasions than I can remember, Jake was given the last piece of pizza. Football practice was a good reason, so he never had to mow the yard. Not to mention each time someone said, "You're Jake's brother, I see." As if that were my whole self. I grabbed another piece. I discovered I was down to 2. Fantastic. I was reminded that I always ended up with less, even by my pizza. It buzzed on my phone. Sam was there. He had the timing of a joke from a sitcom. "Dude, have you checked that lottery ticket yet?" I gave an eye roll. "Yeah, I'm sure I won millions while microwaving a DiGiorno." His reply was, "Come on, man," by text. "Do it for the meme." I took the crumpled ticket out of my jeans and moaned. It seemed like a mean joke. But whatever. All right, I thought, let's get this over with. I had no idea that moment would completely upend my world. I half expected the crumpled lottery ticket in my hand to disappear or catch fire like some nasty practical joke as I glanced at it. I launched my phone's lottery app with trembling fingers. My heart was racing like I had just finished a marathon, and the screen loaded more slowly than dial-up internet. "Scan your ticket," the application asked. I positioned my phone over the barcode while holding my breath. Processing. Then it appeared, $150,000. I blinked. I rubbed my eyes. Blinked once more. I must have been hallucinating after drinking too much Mountain Dew and DiGiorno. However, the figures remained unchanged. 5 millions. Money. I probably frightened the neighbor's dog with a noise I made. It sounds like a combination of a giggle, a gasp, and the sound you make when you stub your toe at 2 in the morning. Once more, Sam's SMS message appeared. "Have you looked it over yet?" My phone nearly flew across the room. $5 million wasn't used to buy a new Xbox. The money was for quit your job and move to a beach house. I went into overdrive with my thoughts. When you win the lotto, what exactly do you do? Google. Of course. What to do in the event that you win the lottery? First rule, keep it a secret. Yes. I'm not joking. For gas money, Jake would most likely sell my secret. Mom would become Oprah. A new kitchen is yours. You get a brand new vehicle. What about Dad? To put it mildly, I wasn't prepared for a 3-hour tax bracket lecture. I paced my room as if I were attempting to scuff the carpet. My mind was racing with a million ideas. Purchase a vehicle. Purchase a home. Purchase all of The Office's seasons on Blu-ray. I scrolled through several articles while I sat on my bed. Appoint a lawyer. Remain anonymous. Avoid spending too much too soon. Most winners disappear within a few years. Fantastic. There is no better way to destroy a mood than to be afraid about going bankrupt. I heard Jake's Jeep thunder into the driveway outside. As he spoke about the Dairy Queen girl who gave him her number, his laughing came through my window. Jake in his classic form. I took a quick look outside. He was there, flinging fries into his mouth while leaning against his brand new Jeep as if nothing were wrong. In the meantime, I was hiding a $5 million secret in my sock drawer. I considered informing Sam. But then I recalled how he unintentionally revealed it when I was infatuated with our math tutor during my sophomore year. I required a strategy. A good one. However, I had to conceal the ticket more well than a cliché. I jammed it into a worn-out book that nobody would ever open. Second advanced algebra. Even a burglar would probably leave that one alone. Once more, my phone buzzed. Sam. Hey, how are you? I smiled. Me? Yes. Remain relaxed, I'm doing fine. But within? My next step was already planned. I had no doubt that they would all want a share of this pie. I wasn't sharing though. I woke up the morning following my $5 million discovery feeling both excited and suspicious. Suppose I misplaced the ticket. What if someone discovered it? What if I were still working late nights at Target when I woke up, haggling with customers over expired coupons? I required a strategy. First step. Take this money to a secure location. I headed directly to the bank after telling my parents I had a morning shift. I googled this as I was parked in my 2008 Honda Civic, which shook whenever I applied the brakes. How to deposit lottery winnings into a bank account without your family knowing. No useful Reddit posts. Lots of tell your mom right away suggestions. Which wasn't. It's happening. I had the impression that a neon sign was flashing over my head inside. Millionaire. I flinched every time the teller looked at me. However, an hour later, I left with a temporary card, a new account, and an appointment with my new financial advisor, Brian. Brian had the ideal appearance for a financial advisor: polo shirt, khakis, and the smile that undoubtedly indicated, "I promise you I won't lose all of your money." When I told him about my victory, he didn't even blink. Recently started a TED Talk on diversified investments. I gave a nod as though I understood. I'm curious if anyone has ever simply purchased a mansion and moved on. In the end, I bought investments in Amazon and Tesla because, well, 2-day shipping and Elon Musk. Operation New Zach will come next. Like a man on a mission, I struck them all. Skipped Walmart, headed straight for Nike, and in only 1 hour, I spent more than I had in the 2 years prior. Hoodies, Air Jordans, Ray-Bans, the necessities. I wasn't counting pennies at the clearance rack for the first time. Jake noticed right away as I walked into the house. New sneakers? He threw a football into the air and asked. I said, Uber, as if that clarified everything. It seems like driving random people around could get you $200 in sneakers in Jake's universe. I exchanged my Civic for a Tesla Model 3 a week later. Jake almost spat out his Mountain Dew when I pulled up for the first time. Nope, he chuckled. Isn't this comparable to renting a car from Uber? Yes, I shrugged. Testing it out. Nobody questioned it. My folks began making insinuations about bills. I was always getting made fun of by Jake for being the fancy Uber driver. In the meantime, I was creating a life that nobody was aware of. I felt liberated for the first time. Jake had his fan club and his Jeep. I had a new beginning and my secret money. However, secrets like mine? They never remain undetected for very long. After the Post Malone concert, with my ears still ringing from the bass and Sam's off-key singing, I drove back down Interstate 90 as the Tesla's autopilot hummed softly. With front row tickets, expensive merchandise, and enough adrenaline to last me a week, the night had been ideal. I was ecstatic, picturing myself driving my Tesla to late-night Taco Bell runs and never having to justify my inability to take spring break vacations. However, when I arrived into our driveway and saw that all of the lights were still on, my excitement began to fade. It was nearly midnight. Strange. I entered with the half expectation that everyone was asleep. Perhaps Jake had fallen asleep while holding his Xbox controller. Rather, like a horrible TV drama intervention scene, Mom, Dad, and Jake were waiting in the living room. Jake was sitting there with my black jacket, which I had inadvertently left behind. Too nonchalantly, he said, "Nice jacket." You know what I discovered in the pocket? During finals week, my stomach fell more quickly than my grade point average. You looked through my belongings? I shot back, trying to sound angry rather than scared. Jake smirked as if he had just scored a game-winning touchdown and shrugged. I felt chilly. I assumed you wouldn't mind. I didn't have to look very far though. There it was, this tiny jewel. He waved the Tesla financial report, which included my $100,000 investment. Mom's voice was hardly audible as her eyes grew wide. Zach, where did you obtain money like this? Dad leaned forward, wearing his trademark serious expression. Take a seat, right now, no way out. My heart was racing. Even if I claimed to have discovered it on the sidewalk, that wouldn't be acceptable. With a sigh, I combed through my hair. I confessed, the words tasting like defeat, I won the lottery. $150,000. Mom blinked quickly, as if she were updating her system. You didn't tell us that it was $150,000? Why? Dad massaged his chin, already in calculator mode. Teaching. Auto insurance. Debt from credit cards. Many family expenses might be covered by this. With that grin that made me want to hurl a pillow at his face, Jake, being Jake, leaned back. I suppose you may now get an actual car instead of renting a Tesla. Like a Toyota, I suppose? I tried not to chuckle, but I knew, I wasn't prepared for the storm that was about to erupt. The living room had the atmosphere of a courthouse. And the defendant was unquestionably me. Mom paced. As if counting every dime they had ever spent, Dad scratched his temples. What about Jake? As if this were background noise, Jake simply browsed through his phone. Normal. Mom responded in a voice that was a mixture of sadness and incredulity. I can't believe you hid this from us. Zach, you have always had our support. Always. I tightened my jaw. Help me? You mean how I received a $25 gift card and you used all of your savings on Jake's Jeep? Jake laughed quietly to himself. Well, you did use it to get those lovely Air Jordans, correct? That was it. I lost my temper. You know what? Number, I firmly stated, I'm not giving you any money. Not for the mortgage. Not for auto loans. And most certainly not for Jake's upcoming Lake Michigan weekend getaway. Mom let out a gasp as if I had just announced my move to Mars. Your family is us. Families support one another. Funny, I retorted. When I was working double shifts at Target to pay for college, I don't recall much assistance. Dad made an effort to maintain harmony. We considered Jake's Jeep to be an investment in his future son. He required it for what purpose? I cut you off. Posts on Instagram? Driving by Starbucks? At last, Jake raised his head. Calm down, man. You're behaving as though I made them purchase it. I sounded sarcastic on the inside. All right, because it's not at all coercive to declare, I need a Jeep. The guilt trips were Mom's first. Zach, we tried our best. Perhaps you could lend a hand a bit. We have several bills that are past due. The water heaters have exploded. New brakes are needed for your dad's vehicle. I reached for my coat. I'm finished. Done, she said in a pejoked tone. Yeah, I said with a nod. Done being the backup plan. Done being the afterthought. I spent the night packing my laptop, chargers, and a stack of foil-wrapped leftover pizza pieces into a duffel bag along with my clothes. Jake didn't even make an effort to bid farewell. He was too preoccupied in FaceTiming his pals about a party. I went to Starbucks the following morning and ordered a venti caramel macchiato. I mean, I could finally afford one without having to check my bank account first. After that, I agreed to a lease for a little flat in the heart of the city that overlooked the Chicago River. It was a little space, as small as your bed and couch. However, it included bare brick walls, a refrigerator that didn't sound like it was dying, and nobody is requesting that I pay the Wi-Fi fee. While sipping my coffee on the balcony, I observed boats gliding down the river. And became aware of something: I was free for the first time in my life. A year went by. Additionally, life has a humorous way of keeping things in balance. Is that Jake's gleaming Jeep Wrangler? Totaled. After he strayed in a Walmart parking lot in an attempt to win over a girl. Yes, since nearly striking a cart return station is the epitome of romanticism. My folks, trying to keep up with Jake's never-ending expenses has left me drowning in credit card debt. Miami spring break vacations, the newest iPhone he simply had to have, and the emergency AirPods that he inexplicably misplaced 3 times. In the meantime, I prospered. No more eyebrows were raised by my Tesla. People simply thought I was another well-paid computer person. My investments yielded significant returns. And I invested in a tech startup that showed promise. Things detonated more quickly than a microwave popcorn bag. All of a sudden, I was more than just the quiet twin who worked Target shifts. For weekend trips, I was the one who arranged last-minute flights to Los Angeles. The man sharing photos of the Grand Canyon sunrise. Disney World? Twice, cross that off my bucket list. I even managed to get a picture of me holding a churro with Mickey Mouse. For what reason? It was like watching a montage of one of those motivational TikToks. The background music is low fidelity. The call, which was inevitable, then arrived. Zach, we need help. Over the phone, Mom's voice wavered. We're behind on everything. The house. The cars. Even groceries. Jake added, sounding less arrogant than normal. Look, man, I screwed up. But we're family, right? I swirled my expensive Starbucks iced coffee and grinned bitterly. Maybe you should have invested in me instead of a Jeep. I ended the call. I'm half anticipating a callback. They didn't. However, fate had not yet finished with me. My phone rang one day. Grandpa was there. Hey kiddo, just checking in. I bet that lottery ticket changed everything, huh? I gasped. Wait, you knew? Of course, he said, laughing. I bought that ticket. Give it to your folks for your graduation. Always knew you were meant for something big. Tears came. Shame too. The only person who thought of me as more than a backup player was Grandpa. I gave 15 years to build our family business, but my brother got the new truck as an engagement gift. I quit and the company fell apart. I was the mainstay of Wilson Family Plumbing. My name is Alex, and I am 35 years old. When the majority of my pals left for college, I remained to assist Dad in growing the company. I gained first-hand knowledge of everything, including how to unclog obstinate drains, repair leaky pipes, construct intricate systems, and handle upset clients at 2 in the morning. During crises in the winter, I took over the company. Earl, my father, progressively returned to a managerial position. In his garage, Dad began with a van and a toolkit. We now have 8 trucks and 12 staff, or rather, they do. There was no magic or serendipity behind that growth. I gave up weekends, sweated for thousands of hours, and paid close attention to establishing our name in the neighborhood. Each and every favorable review. Each and every recurring client. Every recommendation. I had personally made sure they were happy. 5 years ago, my younger brother Travis joined. He still behaves like a youngster who is compelled to work in the family business at the age of 28. He frequently arrives late, takes long meals, and leaves tasks unfinished. It's astounding how many consumer complaints I've had to handle following his trips. Although I'm available for emergencies around the clock, on the weekends, Travis forgets his phone. Dad always has an excuse ready, somehow. He's still learning the ropes, and not everyone has your natural talent, Alex. There were always the warning signs. New hires I trained frequently received promotions ahead of me. After I put in place a new scheduling system that resulted in a 30% increase in efficiency. At our corporate meeting, Travis received recognition for his support of the program. When I proposed diversifying into business contracts, Dad said it was too dangerous. Travis made the same suggestion 6 months later. My father referred to it as innovative thinking. It became impossible to overlook the discrepancies in wealth. For years, Dad had promised me a partnership, lingering ownership interests that never came to pass. In the meantime, I found that Travis was earning $155,000 more a year, while being less experienced and having less responsibilities. The 2010 vehicle I was driving had 180,000 miles on it. Travis and Dad? They drove around in cars that weren't even 3 years old. Loyalty was important, I told myself. The family comes first. That one day Dad would see what I had done. In every way, I was mistaken. For months, my truck had been experiencing frequent breakdowns. The suspension was shot, the transmission was slipping, also there were rust holes in the cargo area that allowed water to enter during rainstorms, damaging costly equipment. Following a particularly severe malfunction that cost us a significant client, at last, Dad acknowledged that we needed a new car. I was evaluating the damage to my old truck that evening. Dad took 2 beers and came out to the garage. Leaning against the workbench, he handed one to me. It was like the old days for a while. Prior to Travis's employment with the organization. When I would resolve issues with Dad. Remember when I taught you how to change the belt on the old Ford? His grizzled face softened with a rare smile. You couldn't have been more than 12. I nodded as the recollection came back to me. You let me do the whole job while you supervised. Told me I had the steadiest hands you'd ever seen on a kid. Never seen anyone take to plumbing like you did, Alex. Natural talent. He looked at the truck instead of me while he sipped his beer slowly. This business, it wouldn't be what it is without you. It made me feel valued for a time. Like I seldom ever did anymore, I felt a connection to him. Before returning inside, he gave me a shoulder clap, leading me to ponder why those epiphanies had become so infrequent. When it really mattered, why couldn't he see my worth? In front of Travis, in compensation, in business decisions? I looked into my alternatives for weeks. Locating the best offers, organizing all the paperwork, and striking a balance between cargo capacity and fuel efficiency. I even made financial arrangements with our long-standing bank. For the following 10 years, this truck would serve as my mobile office. I wanted to do it correctly. Dad invited all of us to dinner that Sunday. Travis brought Jessica, his fiancée, who had just gotten engaged after only 8 months of dating. Mom prepared a feast. Dad looked unusually happy. When dessert was finished, he got up and yelled for everyone to pay attention. My heart soared. Perhaps, I reasoned, he would finally recognize my efforts. Perhaps even make public the collaboration we had discussed. Rather, he produced a set of keys that were fastened to a silver keychain bearing the business's emblem. He gave them to Travis with the broadest smile I'd seen in a long time. To help you start your new life, son. The new company truck is yours. I had them add all the upgrades you wanted. Consider it an engagement present from your mother and me. The ensuing quiet seemed to last forever. Jessica clapped her hands with joy as Travis smiled smugly. My emotions went unnoticed by them. While averting my gaze, my mother busied herself cleaning plates. At last, I was able to speak, but my voice was constricted. Dad, we discussed that truck for the service calls I handle. Travis doesn't even do emergency work. Dad dismissed it with a wave. You can keep using your current truck for a while longer. Travis needs to project a professional image now that he'll be taking over more client relationships. Besides, you know how to keep that old one running. You've always been good with repairs. Without even feigning gratitude, I watched Travis dangle the keys while discussing how he may personalize the paint job. His newest hobby was the truck that should have been mine, the one I required for my real job. Something eventually snapped inside me on the way home in my squeaky old pickup. It was more than just the car. It was neglected, underappreciated, and taken for granted for around 15 years. It was the knowledge that Travis would always be the preferred son and I would always be the dependable workhorse, regardless of what I contributed. I had trouble sleeping that night. I looked through job postings, something I had never given much thought to before. I gave Jack, a former coworker who had gone to work for a rival company, a call to inquire about their business. I was astonished by his response. Alex, you could write your own ticket anywhere in the county with your abilities and connections with clients. What, really, has kept you at your dad's house for so long? For the first time, I understood that my own mistreatment had been made possible by what I had assumed to be loyalty. I had forgotten my own value since I had been so accustomed to being underappreciated. Jack stated that his business required a skilled expert to oversee their commercial branch. Precisely the chance that my father's business had refused me. I painstakingly documented everything I handled throughout the course of the following week. Comprehensive guidelines for our systems, customer preferences, maintenance plans, supplier connections, and emergency procedures. I included remarks about each significant client to the customer database. I refused to become like them by undermining the company. However, I also didn't want to give them a reason to phone me after I left. When I got to work early the next Monday, I put an envelope on my father's desk. Casually late as usual, he came an hour later. His look changed from bewilderment to incredulity as he opened the envelope. 2 weeks' notice? Alex, have you got a joke? He leaned back in his chair and inquired. I calmly and professionally expressed my choice. I only touched on the vehicle incident in passing, preferring to talk about the partnership's repeated unmet promises and my need for professional development. Brighton Plumbing Services was the company I had accepted a position with. Dad sneered. You'll be back in a week. What we provide you here is unmatched by them. Isn't this just a tirade over the truck? He didn't even bother to inquire about my wages. He might have understood that I would be earning almost 40% more, with benefits, and that I would have a clear route to partnership in just 2 years. The company was instantly inundated with the news. Instead of his typical smug expression, Travis's face flushed with dread as he cornered me in the supply room. He growled, "You can't just walk away. Who will be in charge of the West Side contracts? Or the upkeep of the hospital? Or the calls for emergencies?" His self-assured exterior momentarily broke down. He lowered his voice to a whisper. "Dad has been preparing me to assume leadership in the future, but half of what you do is unknown to me. I didn't bother to become familiar with the systems. This is not what I'm ready for." I was shocked to hear the admission of inadequacy. However, it was no longer my issue. He had been content to claim credit for years while I completed the work. I answered, "I'm sure you'll figure it out. You have a nice new truck to drive around in, after all." Unexpectedly, those 2 weeks were freeing. As many of my duties as I could, I taught others. I presented their new technicians to important clients. I painstakingly recorded everything in a 3-ring binder with the big marker label Essential Operations. I put the binder, my business phone, my credit card, and the building's keys on my father's desk on my last day. Dad hardly noticed that I was gone. He remained certain that I would return in a matter of days. Mom contacted me that night with tears in her eyes, pleading with me to think again. She stated, "Family businesses have ups and downs. But we must remain united." I politely mentioned that despite always being underappreciated, I had remained loyal to them for 15 years. This was not a rash choice. It was past due by 15 years. It was an eye-opening first month at Brighton. I was referred to as the best plumber in the county, by my new boss Kevin, to both clients and employees. In addition to being heard, my recommendations were put into practice. When I suggested a more effective method for scheduling business maintenance, Kevin gave me the tools to implement it and urged me to make it a company-wide system. Then my first big test arrived. For months, Brighton has unsuccessfully bid on the Lakeside Corporate Park contract. I knew I had important inside information when Kevin said they were trying one last time. For years, Wilson Family Plumbing had provided building maintenance, and I was fully aware of their priorities and the problems they had faced. Knowing that, I could almost assure Brighton of winning the contract. However, it felt wrong to use such information. A breach of confidentiality for clients. Even though, in theory, I hadn't signed anything that would have stopped it. I thought about my possibilities through a restless night. I got everything from Brighton that my family business couldn't: show respect, just compensation. The chance. I wanted to demonstrate my worth. But not at the expense of my morals. I entered Kevin's office the following morning and gave him the following explanation. Although I was unable to provide precise information regarding lakeside systems, with my knowledge of comparable properties, I might assist Brighton in developing a more robust general proposition. Kevin looked at me for a while. He finally remarked, most guys would have just used whatever advantage they had. Alex, I hired you precisely because of your integrity. Despite this, we were able to secure the contract based on our bid rather than insider knowledge. More than any simple win could have, that moment solidified my position at Brighton. Most unexpectedly, I completed my assignment within a fair time frame. Travis had messed up a simple job, therefore there would be no more midnight calls. No more working on the weekends since Dad had made unrealistic deadline promises without first talking to me. I started hiking on Saturdays, got back in touch with old pals, and even started dating someone who wasn't worn out by my frequent work emergencies. The consequences at Wilson Family Plumbing, meanwhile, were immediate and serious. Their Yelp rating fell from 4.8 to 3.2 stars in only 2 weeks. When they found out I had left, customers who had expressly asked for me were incensed. Missed meetings and duplicate bookings resulted from the breakdown of the intricate scheduling system I had developed, which no one else fully understood. By week 3, the texts began to come in. From Travis first. How can I view the maintenance records for the hospital? Next, from Dad. Where did you save the Peterson job warranty details? I just replied with succinct, business-like instructions for the paperwork I had left behind. When Travis tried to manage the quarterly maintenance at Riverside Medical Center, our biggest commercial client, a serious situation arose. A storage area flooded as a result of his failure to close a major valve. Their contract was immediately terminated by the hospital, resulting in an annual loss of $180,000. 2 seasoned technicians left that same week, complaining about the unorganized schedule and a lack of direction. One of those techs, Tom, who is currently employed by a rival company, told me what transpired after that. After having a total breakdown at the office, Travis screamed that he was being set up to fail and threw tools across the workshop. He said that his father had thrown him into the deep end without the necessary training and had expected him to take on my responsibilities right away without ever giving him the chance to learn. Tom explained how Travis eventually passed out on a bench with his head in his hands and muttered, "Alex made it seem so simple. I had no idea. I didn't bother to find out." It seems that Dad simply stood there, looking pale, as the company he founded fell apart all around him. The weight of real responsibility was causing the Golden Sun's facade to crumble. The tone of my family's text drastically shifted. "Please call us." Which evolved from "we need to talk" to "the business is in serious trouble." Mom began making calls every day, her messages getting more urgent. Jessica, Travis's fiancée, even reached out, stating that he was so stressed out that he was having trouble sleeping. I kept my distance and concentrated on succeeding in my new position. In my first 2 months, I closed 3 significant commercial contracts and received a hefty bonus. I was finally able to save enough money for a down payment on a small property thanks to my raise and manageable work schedule. I also purchased a new truck for myself, not a corporate car. Funded by the results of labor that has been adequately compensated. In our industry, news spreads quickly. In passing, suppliers who dealt with both businesses brought up Wilson Family Plumbing's demise. One person said, "Heard your dad had to lay off 3 more guys," while delivering parts. It is disheartening to witness a long-standing company experiencing such difficulties. I remained dignified in my work. In spite of the temptation, I never disparaged my family. On a Tuesday night, after we had not spoken for 3 months, my father called. There was a change in his voice. Older, defeated. "Alex, we must speak. In person. The company. It's not good." We decided to meet on neutral ground, at a coffee shop halfway between our houses. Their physical changes were startling when Dad and Travis showed up. Dad was lighter. His normally flawless appearance had become unkempt. Travis appeared to have gone weeks without sleep. His eyes had dark shadows under them. He has lost all of his usual swagger. They outlined the terrible circumstances. Revenue is 60% lower. There were only 4 employees left. Their business loan was jeopardized by the bank. To cover costs, 3 trucks have already been sold. Travis had been really proud of the new truck. Sacrificed to keep the lights on, gone too. Dad had even taken out a mortgage on his home to help finance the struggling company. Alex, we made mistakes, Dad said, his voice cracking. I erred. You were taken for granted by me. I'm paying the price now. I witnessed my father crying for the first time in my life. Travis couldn't look me in the eyes and instead gazed at the table. A folder was pushed across the table by Dad. It contained a partnership agreement that included full operational management, a significant pay raise, and 45% ownership. Please, he said in a whisper. Help us preserve what remains. The previous Alex would have seized the chance, eager to be acknowledged for the first time after longing for it. However, the day my truck was given away, that version of me passed away. Rather, I simply stated that I had no interest in going back. From day one, I had discovered a location where my abilities were appreciated, not after a disastrous failure compelled acknowledgement. I clarified, I'm not trying to punish you. I just realized how valuable I am at last. I tried to earn something that should have been given to me freely for 15 years. Show respect. Just compensation. Recognition. I refused to go back. At last, Travis's voice was hollow. Until you departed, I had no idea how much you were doing. Running service calls seemed simple to me. He hesitated and swallowed hard, thinking. I believed Dad was giving you preferential treatment. Completing all of the crucial work for you. I was mistaken. I took no pleasure in their misery. Rather, I provided what assistance I could, names of potential qualified plumbers for their reorganized company. Ideas for simplifying in order to continue operating with a reduced operation. Suggestions for clients to focus on in order to restore their reputation. I informed them, this isn't about retaliation. I didn't go out to harm you. I departed because I was worthy of better. Wilson Family Plumbing is still in business 6 months later, but is a shadow of what it used to be. Dad has taken a big step back and is thinking about retiring early. Instead of delegating everything, Travis has been compelled to learn the ropes and handle service calls himself. After losing the majority of their commercial clients, they now only have 3 trucks and concentrate on residential work. It's awkward when we first see each other at family get-togethers, but we eventually settle into a new routine. After seeing my new home and learning that I had been promoted to commercial division manager, Mom finally stopped trying to guilt-trip me into going back. Even Travis, who occasionally texts me technical questions that I respond to politely, has grown to respect me despite his reluctance. I didn't wake up with a knot in my stomach for the first time in my adult life. I've changed from the fervently devoted son who never received the approval he sought. The physical strain of plumbing work wasn't the biggest weight I've ever carried. It was the emotional burden of attempting to win the respect and affection of those who didn't value me. Retaliation isn't always the reason to leave. It can be the sole route to self-respect at times. I've discovered that the best form of retaliation isn't seeing other people fail after you've left. It is succeeding so thoroughly that your value is determined by your absence. Kevin told me last month that he wants me to manage his second location, which he plans to open in the nearby county. He claims that I could eventually buy him out and turn it into my own business. I find myself visualizing the fleet of trucks, organizing the service area, and creating the logo in my head. Wilson Blue was the only color painted. Not with malice, but because I'm creating something that is genuinely mine at last. My sister banned my kids from her wedding. After 2 years of silence, she showed up with gifts because she couldn't have children herself. Due to the possibility that my children may create discomfort, my sister did not invite me to her wedding. After being infertile for 2 years, she unexpectedly arrived at my door with gifts. My 11-year-old twin boys, who are on the autism spectrum, are my 38 Fahrenheit. To provide a stable atmosphere for children, my spouse and I have put in a ton of effort. They are wonderful children who simply require a little more help and tolerance than most. We've faced our fair share of difficulties, including grocery store meltdowns, that one awful school play, don't ask, and the ongoing struggle to obtain appropriate accommodations from the school district. But, for the most part, we worked it out. When I was little, my sister and I were finishing each other's sentences. We exchanged secrets, clothes, and everything else. When I discovered I was pregnant, I phoned her first. I supported her at every breakup, career problem, and other situation. When my boys were diagnosed, she was present. Or she seemed to me to be. She sat with me as I sobbed and brought over lasagna. About 5 years ago, she met her now husband, and things began to change. He is from an important family of some sort. They are merely wealthy and well-connected. They are not very significant. They act as like they are royalty because his dad served on the local council years ago or something. Over time, my sister began spending more time with his friends and family, which caused us to postpone our plans, The typical drift. Then it became every weekend. Initially, it was just, oh, Josh's mom invited us for dinner, or Josh's friends are having a thing. Then, they became the subject of every call. The boys took note. They would inquire as to why their aunt had stopped visiting. I didn't want them to feel rejected, so I fabricated excuses. I informed them that she was either traveling or working. I detest lying to my children, but what could I have said? Your new boyfriend thinks you're weird, so your aunt doesn't want to deal with you. Because that's how it seemed. I was pleased for her when they became engaged. I really was. I sent a card, flowers, and other things. She gave me a strange look and said, "I'll think about it," but she never mentioned it again when I asked if she wanted me to assist with wedding plans. I assumed she was occupied or something. I still purchased a dress because I thought I would somehow attend the wedding. I still have the tags on it and it hangs in my closet. Then one day, while browsing Facebook, yes, I still use it, don't judge me, I came upon a ton of photos from her wedding. I was not invited to a wedding. Not only was she not invited as a guest, but she was not even in the wedding party. My parents were present. There were our cousins. There were even a few high school acquaintances she hardly ever speaks to anymore. Not me, though, not my spouse. And certainly not my children. I called her right away, and to my astonishment, she did respond. She hesitated for a moment before responding that her in-laws didn't want any disruptions at the wedding and that my children would cause discomfort when I questioned her about what the hell happened. She claimed that although she fought really hard to include us, she ultimately gave in because she didn't want any controversy, and it was her special day. It's like my children are living drama machines. I was standing in my kitchen, looking at the dumb refrigerator magnet she had gotten me from her trip the previous year, and I can still clearly recall where I was when she said it. Sisters Forever was inscribed on it. While we were still on the phone, I removed it and tossed it in the garbage. I assumed my parents would be as indignant as I was, so I contacted them next. Not at all. In fact, they stood up for her. Stated that I should make an effort to comprehend her viewpoint and that sometimes difficult decisions must be taken. Perhaps it was for the best because my dad even dared to comment that such activities can be too stressful for my boys anyhow. As though they are more knowledgeable than I am about what's best for my children. As though we hadn't been organizing activities and excursions for years. I realized then that this was nothing new. My cousin's children were always treated differently than my boys. Less excitement and fewer birthday gifts. They brought my kids educational toys to help with their development. They would take my niece to the zoo, but they said my boys might not enjoy that kind of thing. They also bought my nephew a drum set, a 4-year-old drum set. And then I blocked them all. I modified my phone number, went across town. This sped up the process, but we had already planned to relocate since we needed a house with a better layout for the boys. My husband was totally on board. If it's possible, he was even more enraged than I was. In any case, he never really got along with my family. Because he works with his hands, they always treated him as though he wasn't good enough. God forbid someone chooses to work as a carpenter rather than spend their days in an office. We created a brand new existence, with pals who genuinely care about our family. We discovered a parent support group for children with autism. As a result, we became acquainted with other families. Our neighbors invite us to their barbecues, and they don't care if one of my children has to take a quiet period or wear noise-canceling headphones. Just regular folks that treat my children like children, you know. It was more than 2 years prior. Sincerely, I believed that chapter of my life was over. Occasionally, mutual friends would post about them, but I would simply scroll past them. Immediately following the wedding, I learned through rumors that my sister was attempting to conceive. Immediately starting a family, or whatever. Well done, I thought. She can have the ideal neurotypical small family that she has always desired. Then, unexpectedly, my dad, mom, and sister arrived at our front door yesterday. Included gift bags. These phony smiles, too. I inquired as to how they discovered our address. That question, which is really unsettling, was disregarded. Really, none of our mutual acquaintances would have given it to them without first asking me, and we weren't on the list. They probably hired someone or something, which further adds to the strangeness of the situation. Immediately, my sister broke down in tears, which is often her first reaction, and expressed how much she missed the boys and me. My mother said that they had given it a lot of thought and had come to their error. My dad was about to say no to something, and he just stood there looking uneasy, shifting his weight from foot to foot like he used to do when we were kids. Then my sister reveals the shocking news that she and her husband have been unsuccessfully trying for a child for the past 2 years. After a series of unsuccessful fertility procedures, she is now re-evaluating the true meaning of family. As if reading from a Hallmark card, she said that same line. She discussed how her husband's family is pressuring them to continue the family name, despite the fact that they have seen 3 doctors and undergone IVF twice. For a minute, I just stared at them, trying to take it all in. My mother was nodding in agreement. As if it were the most intriguing thing he had ever seen, my dad was studying our porch light. My sister continued to ramble endlessly about how she had a revelation about what is really important in life. Then I told them exactly what I had assumed, that they are settling for my relationship since they are unable to have their ideal small family and only want a relationship right now. When they kicked my boys out of a family gathering because they were, what? They showed no concern for them. Feeling embarrassed? But my children are suddenly good enough now that my sister dearest is unable to have her own? My father attempted to interrupt me by saying something like, "That's not fair," but I had already finished. My children aren't emotional support animals that they can ignore and then pick up whenever it's convenient, I informed them. They were treated as though they were flawed, which damaged them as human beings. I reminded them that we used to get together every Sunday for dinner, but that invitation abruptly stopped when my sister began seeing her husband. At that point, my mother broke down in tears, accusing me of being unkind and claiming that they had learnt their lesson. My sister simply looked at me as if I had smacked her, which, to be honest, I had almost done. She persisted in reaching for this present bag as though it would make everything better. Out of the top, I could see a nice toy of some sort, just the kind of item that would overstimulate one of my guys and make them lose it. They couldn't even recall their basic characteristics. They should take their guilt gifts with them, I advised them. I closed the door after that. I could hardly turn the latch since my hands were shaking so much. However, the presents were left outside my door. Afterward, I tossed them in the garage. I informed my husband what had happened when he arrived downstairs after hearing the commotion. Even though he indicated I made the proper decision, I'm now questioning it. The problem is that over the years, my boys have inquired about their aunt and grandfather on a few occasions. I know they remember them, even though it's not often. I sometimes question whether I'm denying my children's family ties out of animosity. However, I also believe that allowing these individuals to return to our lives will only prepare my children for future rejection. What happens if my sister does, in fact, become pregnant? Will she abandon us once more? Will my parents once again treat my children as inferior? I haven't mentioned the visit to the guys. Thank God, it happened while they were visiting a friend's house. At the last minute, I switched shifts with a coworker. I was only at home because of that when they arrived. Here, am I the a-hole? For the sake of my children, should I have at least listened to them? Update. Holy shit, I had no idea this would go so out of control. I appreciate all of the support and comments, I will miss my inbox. However, a number of you misinterpreted certain points, so allow me to clarify. First, none of my boys are severely autistic. They occasionally struggle with social cues and have certain sensory difficulties, but with the right planning, they can definitely handle a wedding. They've attended past events without any problems. That was merely a pretext. Actually, one of them is really quiet and spends most of his time sitting and playing his games. The other one is more active, but if you explicitly explain the regulations, it complies quite nicely. Unless you consider any youngster who isn't completely silent to be disruptive, they aren't. 2. You weren't there for those who said, well, maybe they really have changed. My sister's expression when discussing her infertility problems was not visible to you. Re-establishing contact with family wasn't the goal. She wanted what she was unable to have. When I gave her a toy she desired as a child, she used to receive the same expression. 3. And no, they didn't offer an apology. Nobody said, "I'm sorry," once in their little address. Now, it was all about their feelings and desires. How difficult things were for them. How it would be good for them to reconnect, nothing about the harm they had caused or how my children were impacted by their behavior. 4. My husband's family lives on the opposite side of the nation, so someone inquired about them. Although we video chat on vacations and they send birthday cards, they aren't really involved on a daily basis. That's significant though, because they've never been strange about the boy's autism. 5. And please go fuck yourself to the individual who sent me a private message accusing me of exploiting my children's disabilities as a justification for my anger. You don't know what we've endured. Anyway, since my post, a lot has transpired. Since the incident, my sister has been constantly messaging me. There was more sobbing and guilt tripping at first. She's acting rudely now, accusing me of being immature and punishing her for one mistake. One error? They ignored my family for 2 years after excluding us all from a significant life event. That is a sequence of intentional decisions rather than a single error. At around 2 in the morning, she also sent this strange SMS, expressing her desire to be an aunt, and her envy of my motherhood journey. Who speaks in such a manner? It seems so staged and manufactured. When she would come over, this same person would ask me to make the boys wait in a different room because she found their stimming to be bothersome. I didn't answer when my parents called either, since I assumed it was them. In their voicemail, they stated that they would like to meet in a neutral setting and talk things over like adults. To avoid having their previous numbers blocked, they apparently changed their numbers or something. My husband believes they are also full of shit, and I did wind up telling him everything they stated. He brought to mind how, rather than genuinely offering assistance or making an effort to understand, my parents continued sending us papers about cures, and recommending that we try various diets or other things when our boys were first diagnosed. I had nearly forgotten about it. Or when, in a loud whisper, my mother explained to a waitress that my kid wasn't being impolite when he didn't respond to her inquiry. He's just autistic, as if it were some embarrassing secret. Especially after the diagnosis, my sister would use this phony sympathetic voice to comment on how so hard having twins must be. Will they ever be able to live independently, she would wonder? When they were 4 years old. About a 4-year-old, who asks? At 4, even neurotypical children are unable to live on their own. I'm still unsure about how to inform my children. I assumed I had received all of them, but one of them discovered a gift bag they had left behind and inquired as to its origin. I simply put it away after saying it was from an old buddy. Lying to children makes me uncomfortable, but I also don't want to raise their expectations about people who might vanish in the future. Lately, they have been doing incredibly well. A few of you asked if I would think about doing family therapy with them. Perhaps I will. But I'm just trying to take it all in right now. In order to escape all of this drama, my husband proposed that we go on a family vacation the following month, which sounds like a wonderful idea at the moment. A few hours away is a location with cabins beside a lake. On one school excursion, the boys went there and had a great time. Oh, and strangely, yesterday I received a friend request on Facebook from one of my mom's acquaintances, with whom I haven't spoken in years. They're probably attempting to obtain information now via other means. Of course, I ignored it. I may provide another post if something noteworthy occurs, but for the time being I'm attempting to concentrate on my real family, the individuals who have been here continuously. Second update. Alright, so a week or so has passed after everything happened, and certain things have happened. I didn't intend to post again so quickly, but I need to vent because things keep happening. To begin with, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who left a comment offering practical guidance rather than simply labeling me resentful, which, well, okay. No, Sig. I'm resentful, would you not be? To answer your question, I haven't examined the gifts they brought. However, before publishing this update, I did investigate them. They remain seated in the garage for the time being. Thus, on Tuesday, my sister arrived at my place of employment. She just happened to walk in as I was working my part-time job at this little office. It's still really creepy where I work, and I don't know how she found out. I didn't want to make a scene in front of my coworkers, so I escorted her outside. We were in the parking lot and anyone might see us, so even though I was angry, I attempted to keep my voice down. She began her address by saying that she has been doing a lot of soul searching, and that learning that she is unable to have children has put things in perspective for her. Then, using the same strange whisper as if it were a secret, she began discussing how her husband had evolved in his thinking on special needs children. None of it sounded real, so I just stood there wondering if she was reading from a script. As she normally does when she is lying, she continues to check her phone during her conversation. She would make up reasons why she couldn't do anything with me, something she used to do when we were teenagers. She then went straight to the point. She wants to show them what real family looks like, by taking the boys and me to her husband's family's major reunion in a few months. She genuinely expressed her desire to demonstrate to them the extraordinary potential of exceptional children. As if my kids are some sort of pornographic inspiration for her in-laws. Then something clicked. This has nothing to do with getting back in touch with us. She is doing this to brag to her in-laws about having a relationship of any sort with her nephews. As if we were accessories in her life narrative. For example, my children are a backup plan or consolation reward because she is unable to have her own. I walked away after telling her I had to return to work. I need to stop living in the past, she called after me. It is rich coming from someone who, after her initial goal failed, now just wants a relationship. For the remainder of my shift, I was trembling. It was kind of my boss to notice and let me leave early. The problem is that if they had demonstrated any awareness of their mistakes, I might have thought about allowing them to re-enter gradually. However, people continue to treat my children as though they are unique, special, or something. Not only children, who should be accorded the bare minimum of deference. They continue to focus on themselves and their requirements. After that, I ended up answering my mom's phone yesterday from a new number I didn't recognize. She said that I'm being too harsh on my sister, who is inconsolable. Did you think it was wrong to exclude us from the wedding? I asked her directly. She merely mentioned complicated situations, and doing what seems best at the time, without providing a precise response. She eventually acknowledged that she felt the wedding wasn't an appropriate setting for children with issues, after I pressed her on the matter. She said exactly that. She referred to them as children with issues, without even mentioning their names or recognizing them as her grandchildren. I ended the call. I have had enough excuses and non-apologies. The suggestion that my children are inferior to other youngsters has been dropped. I'm tired of the way they skirt the true problem, which is that they're ashamed of my children and that they only want a relationship now that their situation has changed. After school today, my husband took the boys out for ice cream, and I finally got around to looking into those gift bags. It was just what I had anticipated. Generic items that demonstrated a complete lack of familiarity with my children. Things that are completely out of their age range or completely unrelated to their hobbies. One of the bags had a card and a check for a sizable sum of money. Just the check, no note. They seem to be attempting to re-enter our lives through financial means. I tore it to shreds. Their money is not necessary for us. For 2 years, we've been getting by just fine without it. Regarding my boys, I finally had a conversation with them last night and gave them the straightforward explanation that they haven't seen their grandparents or aunt in a long time since family members don't always treat one another properly. I didn't try to sway them or go into specifics. If they would meet them again, one of them inquired. Maybe someday, but not right now, I replied. I believe they don't remember as much about my family as I believe they did because they seem to take it really readily. When you're 11, 2 years is a long time. One of them said he recalled how delicious Grandma's cookies were. The other claimed he didn't enjoy the stench coming from Grandpa's house. It did smell like mothballs. They then inquired about their ability to play video games, and that was that. I believe that was the best course of action. It appeared to be acceptable to them. On social media today, my sister shared a cryptic tweet about forgiving people who don't know how to accept love, or something similar. Many family members used heart emojis in their comments. In their view of events, I suppose I am the antagonist. I'm good with that. So, yes. That is the current situation. Is the asshole still me? Perhaps. However, I would much rather be a jerk than allow my children to be used as emotional band-aid solutions to cover up someone else's sadness. Third update. I didn't intend to provide another update so quickly, but circumstances have become worse, and I'm still dealing with the fallout. Do you recall how I said my sister shared that ambiguous post on social media? Evidently, though, she has been posting far more frequently than that. I received screenshots of things my sister has been saying about me online from a common acquaintance, who is one of the only people who hasn't taken sides. In essence, she is portraying herself as a grieving aunt who merely wants to get back in touch with her nephews. And me, this vengeful bitch, using my children as weapons. In addition, she uses the hashtag number anti-love or something similar to it. She is disclosing details about my children, including their ages, the fact that they have autism, and even some old pictures of them, which greatly aggravates me. All for her naive supporters' compassion points. I'm thinking about filing a lawsuit since I feel that my privacy has been violated. My children didn't request to join her on social media. But hold on, things will improve. Or worse. In fact, the school called me yesterday to report that my parents had arrived in an attempt to visit the boys. They wanted to surprise them at lunch, so they told the office they were the grandparents. Fortunately, the school phoned me right away because they weren't on the authorized pickup list. I've never been more appreciative of school security measures. I immediately lost my shit and called my parents. I threatened to obtain a restraining order if they attempted something similar in the future. In fact, my dad attempted to excuse it by claiming that they didn't think it was a big issue and that they only wanted to see the boys. Is it not a huge problem to arrive at an elementary school without warning? How could that be considered normal behavior? My mother called and began sobbing once more, stating that they were in a difficult situation and had run out of options. I advised them to accept my boundaries for the first time in their life as an alternative. Just in case, I hung up and gave my friend a call to ask for guidance regarding restraining orders. I had to leave work early once more in order to speak with the principal of the school and ensure that they were aware of the circumstances. In fact, she was very encouraging and promised to add a note about unapproved visitors to the boys' files. I had the impression that I was involved in some strange custody dispute, only this time, the parties involved had no legitimate claim to my children. Then, at about 8 p.m. last night, the doorbell rang. My sister's spouse was standing there when I peered through the peephole. Not my sister, not my folks. Her spouse. The same man who believed my children were unworthy of attending his priceless wedding. I yelled at him to go or I would call the police, but I didn't open the door. Without a word, he pushed an envelope under the door and walked out. It had a formal letter from him in which he apologized for any misunderstandings, and described how his marriage had changed him as a person. Another check, larger than the previous one, was also there. For the boy's future, he added in the memo line. As if we were in need of his kindness. It seems as though a public relations team wrote the entire thing. Nothing concrete about what he did wrong or why it hurt us is mentioned. It's all generalizations about family bonds and second chances. My husband simply laughed when I showed him it and remarked, "This guy still doesn't get it, does he? All this is wearing me out." They seem to be deliberately wearing me down, as if they believe that if they persist, I will ultimately give in. The lads have also noticed how stressed I am. I sat them both down and assured them that we would not be leaving. That they were secure. That they didn't have to be concerned. I clarified that adult arguments can occasionally take some time to resolve. I was straightforward and comforting. After that, they appeared to be fine. However, I detest that they are even being impacted by this. In the event that we do require legal protection, my spouse recommended that we keep a record of everything that occurs. I've started recording all of the attempts to get in touch, saving voicemails and texts, capturing screenshots of my sister's posts, and other similar activities. It seems excessive. However, so is turning up at someone's place of employment or their children's school. My current strategy is to keep avoiding them as much as I can while still keeping my family safe. I've changed my email password just in case, blocked and locked my sister's new social media accounts, and updated all of our emergency contacts with people we truly trust. I still don't know if I'm doing this correctly. I suppose my current query is, how can I shield my children from all of this drama without having them feel as though a significant secret is being withheld from them? And regardless of how much soul-searching the other person professes to have done, am I mistaken in believing that some relationships are simply too broken to be repaired? Update 4. Well, my last update was a couple weeks ago. I haven't felt the need to update because things have finally settled down a bit, but I thought I should wrap this up for those who have been following along and given support. First of all, we appreciate all of your notes asking how we are doing. Even if they have never met me or my children, it means a lot to know that there are individuals who can relate to my situation. I had my friend's attorney assist me in writing a formal cease and desist letter to my sister and parents following the school incident. Although it doesn't have the same legal force as a restraining order, it does provide documentation in case the situation worsens. In essence, the letter threatened legal action for any more unexpected visits to our house, my place of employment, or the children's school. Interestingly, it appears to have been successful. To the best of my knowledge, my sister has ceased sharing information about us on social media, and there have been no more unexpected visits. In a brief email, my parents acknowledged receiving the letter and stated that they needed time to process everything. I'm good with that. In the end, my husband and I decided to go to the lake. For a long weekend, we rented a cabin and simply unplugged from the outside world. It was adored by the lads. They observed wildlife, gathered rocks, and learned how to skip stones on the lake from my husband. It was just what each of us needed. I've been thinking a lot about family and its true meaning. As a child, I always believed that family was something that could not be compromised. For better or worse, you are trapped with your family. However, as I've grown older, I've come to understand that family is actually about who supports you regularly, who embraces you for who you are, who makes an attempt to comprehend and assist you. I'm not sure if my parents, sister, and I will ever get along again. Perhaps one day, if they can show that they've really changed and are prepared to accept my children for who they are. I'm not holding my breath though. And I'm not waiting for it to happen by putting my life on hold. Something that truly resonated with me was mentioned by someone in the comments section of my last post. You owe nothing to the family you were born into, only to the family you have chosen. I think that's correct. We're just going about our lives for the time being. If nothing significant changes, I doubt I'll update again. Once again, I appreciate your support and listening. You have no idea how much it helped. My wife cheated through text after 5 years together. I quietly planned my exit while she was away and left her a cold goodbye note. First, I'm 36, and I thought finding a good honest woman was like discovering a unicorn. You hear about them but never see one. My personality is direct and no nonsense, unlike those nice guys who complain about being friend-zoned. I work in construction. My job is good and I make a good living. Even when I gave my all in previous relationships, I felt like it wasn't enough. I sent flowers without reason, remembered anniversaries, and listened to others. I tried to sympathize and encourage. I was always hurt at the end. I started to wonder if all the good things and hard work were worthless. Being kind and caring seemed like a burden. I was losing hope in the relationship. My belief was that qualities were no longer valued. Honestly, I didn't look. About 5 years ago, I met Jessica. Her age was 33, nothing special happened during the meet cute. A mutual acquaintance introduced us at a casual party. It was simple. Her smile seemed honest, therefore I was drawn to it. Not fake or forced. I got her number and started dating after spending the evening talking to her. Early on, 3 months later, seeing each other was joyful, so, well, we clicked. I always tried my hardest. I remember the outfits we wore that day as well as yesterday. I initially thought the connection was casual, but I started to like it. This was my chance. There, I felt like I had discovered the one. Jessica was special. Although we shared many interests, including hiking and visiting new restaurants, I thought it was healthy to have our own. I like fixing old automobiles and going to car shows. It didn't bother me that she found it intriguing. She made many bowls and vases since she loved ceramics. I liked her art even if I didn't have the patience to do it. It offered conversation and learning opportunities. In the beginning, everything seemed right. Despite being young and still learning, we worked together. Felt natural, we felt like we were making something, we planned and spoke about the future. Our jobs were different, as detailed later in this post. Construction is my job. On-site work dominates my days. Even if it's challenging, I'm proud of my honest job. Jessica sold, nevertheless. Her performance was measured by software sales. After working in a 9-to-5 office, her company offered to let her work from home, so she did. I first loved it. Even living in the same home while she worked would provide her more freedom and allow us to spend more time together. I always supported her in finishing her job to get that promotion and was proud of her. Destinations were planned. Personally, I've always considered myself an excellent companion. I'm not bragging, but I try to focus, support, and defend my partner. Impulsiveness, emotional support, and bedroom competence are required. Jessica and I worked hard. She seemed trustworthy. I used to worry about my partners lying. Jessica was different. I'm not saying adultery is impossible, but I wasn't worried. I believed we had a special relationship built on respect and trust. Thus, I was deeply touched by what followed. It began softly. Jessica acted weird. She seemed odd, it's hard to explain. She was secretly taking calls in another room and hiding the screen as I passed. She loved him less and spent less time with him. She always complained about being fatigued, even on weekends when we had plans. I initially ignored it. I thought she was stressed at work. I could tell she was stressed out by her promotion efforts. I kept telling myself, don't jump to conclusions, it's probably nothing. I didn't want to think it was serious. My first thought was curiosity. I wondered why she was so aloof and what was wrong. I had lost sight of the big picture. However, the odd behavior continued. I saw nothing of Jessica for a week. Just enough of those everyday moments kept me going, making me wonder whether I exaggerated. However, suspicions grew. I didn't think she cheated immediately. I suspected she was having a personal problem, perhaps she was hiding a disease. We watched a movie one Saturday night as usual. She appeared preoccupied and on her phone continuously. She insisted they were work emails when I asked. On Saturday night, even though she had never done it. I grew worried then. I was getting more anxious. Finally, I told my pal James. James is decent yet cynical, especially about relationships. His traumatic divorce a few years ago warped his outlook on everything. When I confided in him, he laughed. His words, "Dude, if she's a woman, she can cheat on you. Will always stay with me. They all have it." He said you can never be sure even if you have everything, a great career and nice appearance. Even though it was harsh, that statement moved me. My perspective was entirely altered. All of Jessica's activities became suspicious. My curiosity and anxiousness led me to suspect she was cheating. James' words stuck with me. I decided I was done. I couldn't live with this doubt and feeling of something wrong. I decided to find out what was occurring. I knew about Reddit, and every internet suggestion advocated phoning. Thus, I decided to go that route if things didn't improve. I made a great dinner. I made lasagna, her favorite, while we were having fun. I put candles on the table to create a relaxing atmosphere. She should feel comfortable confiding in me. I brought it up after waiting for her to arrive home after eating. I told her I was worried about her weird behavior and wanted to know why. I asked, "Are you cheating on me?" She seemed surprised. Her shaking hands prevented her from looking at me. To be honest, watching her stutter and struggle for words stung. Finally, she denied. She was shocked I asked that question. That she loved me and we had been together 5 years. Her crying was almost uncontrollable. A complete concert. My trouble was that I didn't believe her. Perhaps James's words were ringing in my thoughts. Maybe it was my instinct. It didn't feel right. I expected her to be upset at my accusation. But she wasn't. She looked more depressed, like she was offended I ever contemplated it. I apologized for blaming her, but she took it too fast. It wasn't rational. I'm not proud of what I did, but it was necessary. I pretended to trust her. We went to bed after I apologized again and said I was being overly careful. But I couldn't sleep. I calculated this move. I knew I needed her to trust me again to find the truth. Her defenses had to drop. Waiting for the right time, I understood what to do. The night would be long. Everything was leading up to what I needed to accomplish. I wouldn't feel comfortable until I knew the truth. The suspicion was slowly eating me up when I thought, if she thinks I am this stupid, she has another thing coming. I waited until Jessica was asleep. My phone says 3:17 a.m. I lay there staring at the ceiling for hours. I was queasy and my heart was beating, but I had to do it. I removed her phone from the nightstand, cautiously got out of bed, and went to the bathroom. I scrolled through her texts after opening. Scrolling her gallery yielded nothing. Then I checked her texts. That's when I noticed. One contact is Harry's Plumbing. Why does Jessica keep messaging a plumber? That was obvious that was a fake name. I almost laughed at how childish and obvious that was. My world collapsed as I clicked on the conversation. James sent explicit messages. Pet names. Share how much they missed each other. Dirty talk. Nearly nude photographs were also posted. Jessica added, "You're making it hard to focus on work, you know?" As James smirked and said, "I can't stop thinking about your smile." Jessica posted a photo of herself wearing new underwear with the caption, "Wish you were here to take this off me." All was black and white. They had suggestive texts and emotional connection without saying they had slept together. Just an affair. It lasted at least 2 weeks, matching her unusual behavior. As I read the messages on the restroom floor, I felt I could have a panic attack. My heart raced. Too fast breathing. The phone was hard to grasp since my hands were shaking. Felt like shouting, "Ruin something." To awaken and handle her promptly. They weren't pretty, and I won't say more, but I pondered finding James. Horrified, indignant, and grieving. 5 years. 5 years of a falsehood in this relationship. I wondered how she did it. Did anything happen? Did she ever love me? It seemed like my world was flipped. It was good to hear about it before we were married and had kids. I was upset at her method though. Everything, the ridiculous emoticons, the childish code names. It felt like I was losing control and my sanity. I knew I had to leave. I had to breathe and determine what to do. Next hour, I documented everything. I took notes and screenshots to capture everything. Once I had everything documented, I needed a plan. Sitting on the restroom floor, I contemplated everything. Not knowing what to do. My head was full of ideas. I was mad. I considered alerting our parents, putting everything online, or handing out flyers at her workplace. Move out, hire a lawyer, or leave silently. I realized I had power and wanted her to know how hurt she had made me. My finances are solid. Union membership gives me security. However, Jessica struggled. Sales wasn't her thing. Her income was low. I knew I helped her live in our expensive city. She would struggle without my pay. Ideas came from this. I knew I could survive without her. Reddit is my current location. Totally wrecked. In anguish. Am upset. I'm also considering my future move. I don't know how to end it, but I must. First update. Many things have happened since my last post a few months ago. I apologize for the delay. I know many of you wanted an update. I needed time to think clearly and make the right choices. Making this a crisp division was my intention. After learning about the affair, the initial weeks were awful. Jessica found me cold and uncaring. We slept in separate rooms. Rarely did I speak to her in full phrases. I was too angry and hateful to look at her. I ate little. It was beyond me what she was doing. I learned that it's important to take your time getting married, and I want to share this with you. I'm glad Jessica and I didn't marry. I avoided a bullet there. It merely shows that you can never truly know someone until you've lived with them for a long time and seen their best and worst. This aspect was now familiar to me. I wait. Our lease was up in 3 months under my name. I thought that would be the best time to approach. With more time, I could arrange, get things in order, and maximize my actions. Finding an affordable apartment near my job took time. I also had to pack boxes and seek friends for help relocating. I planned, but there was plenty to do. A month after I inspected her phone, Jessica and James shared a bed. Really, it only made things easier when I found out. I should go, it said. It eliminated any doubt or desire to fix the situation. That was the final nail. I've heard that cheats lose interest when the forbidden part is eliminated. Jessica and James's relationship may not last. It's a lie-based fiction. That's their problem, not mine. I was gathering myself after finalizing the plan. In the last month of the lease, it was time to move. I was ready because I prepared for months. Jessica would work late, so I chose a day. She said she had a big client dinner, but I didn't care. It just gave me the chance. I had already arranged my friends, including James, who knew everything. They were eager to help. For weeks they told me to move on, that I deserved more and that they would always support me. Good men. Very lucky to have them. Their support made me feel better about my actions. We met at the flat early in the afternoon. Most of my possessions were in cartons with clear labels for easy identification. We worked efficiently. These people ran smoothly. The truck carried all my possessions, which made up around 80% of the apartment's contents. I tried to take as little as possible from her: cookware, electronics, furniture, clothing, tools. I wanted her to feel my months-long emptiness. I liked that the new flat was closer to work. It was tiny but clean, mine. New beginning? In 4 hours, we moved everything. Considering my wealth, it was fast. I remember touring the apartment before leaving. Jessica brought a few pieces of furniture into the relationship, but the walls and shelves were nearly bare. It looked downcast. Indeed, it felt good. Knowing I was doing this fueled a strange mix of wrath and grief. Freedom was also felt. I was free at last. I did one last thing before leaving. Simple letter on paper. Goodbye. Enjoy, James. I thought about writing a long, indignant letter to communicate my anger and annoyance, but I decided that less was more. This concise, direct message was better. I set the note on the kitchen counter so she would see it when she came in. It's trite, but it seemed right. I considered saying something caustic, but this was enough. I told my friends I could handle the rest, but they helped me unpack some essentials at the new place. I needed time to adjust. After thanking them again, they left. I was lucky to have them. Next came the hard part: ghosting. My phone exploded when Jessica got home and found the note. She panicked and sent calls, texts, and messages on all social media sites. In a few hours, she went from furious accusations to emotional begs for forgiveness. She even tried to contact me through mutual acquaintances, appealing for help, but I never responded. Every phone, message, and attempt to contact me was ignored. My vengeance was completely quiet. I wanted her to feel confused, apprehensive, and powerless like I did when I found about her affair. I haven't spoken to her in 3 weeks since moving out, and I'm enjoying imagining her worry. She must be terrified. Update 2. The landlord contacted me on my cell phone a few days after I left, evidently confused and unsure of what was going on. He must have heard Jessica's story, but he wanted to hear mine. I told him everything about the affair, James, and how I couldn't live with a cheater, so I left and told him I wouldn't renew the lease. The landlord was sympathetic after I had been a good tenant for years, paying my rent on time and never causing any problems. I think he appreciated my sincerity. I also told him the security deposit would be lost. I didn't want my money back or to aid Jessica. I asked the landlord to inspect the flat and determine if she was entitled to payment. I trusted him to make the right judgment. The landlord then told me, with a strange sense of satisfaction, that Jessica was unable to pay for the flat on her own. Her family lived too far away to help, and she had no roommate. She was in risk of eviction and desperately looking for a new home. I was relieved to know that her treachery caused it. I know some people think I'm being mean and that I should feel sorry for Jessica, but I didn't. I threw myself into her, created a good friend, was reliable, and helped her, and she tossed it all away for a cheap thrill. She made her choices and now faces the consequences. It's about the notion and the hurt and disgust she put on me, not the money, flat, or goods I stole. Having the best of all worlds, a hidden affair and a loving, committed partner, is impossible. The landlord did the walkthrough and contacted me to say everything was great and my security deposit would be refunded. I was pleased. He also informed me that he had delivered Jessica the eviction notice and praised my handling of matters. I thanked him again and said I was pleased to be moving on. I also blocked her and moved on as advised. Third update. A month after the last post, Jessica tried to call me from a blocked number, which went to voicemail. After looking at it, I knew it was her. I returned the phone, and Jessica started crying. She was crying, stating she had nowhere to go, and apologizing repeatedly. She sounded discouraged and worn out. She knew she had to admit the affair. She kept saying I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, and offered weak apologies and explanations. She said, it simply occurred. Not my intention. I was confused. It was pitiful. She even brought up our happy times to gain my love back. You still care about me? She questioned, cracking. She was desperate and would try anything to change my mind. She said she had nowhere to go and didn't know what to do. I listened to her sobs to help her comprehend the weight of her decisions. I laughed a bit, without humor, with incredulity and derision. I told Jessica it's funny. You lied to me and hid for weeks or months, and now you want my sympathy? It took me another second to process what I said. You decided? You destroyed ours. You are feeling the effects. My final blow was lethal. I said mechanically, you have James. Go live with him. I hung up after that, denying her the chance to reply, discuss or beg. If she spoke, I cut her off mid-sentence. There was no going back. After hanging up, I blocked her on Facebook, Instagram, and all my other social media accounts. I eliminated her internet presence as fully as I did her physical presence from my residence. Despite considering erasing old photos and notes, I kept them for now to remember my hardships and successes. While sitting back, I felt a strange tranquility. No joy or victory. Just closure. I felt relieved after months of carrying a load. I justified my actions to myself alone. I said, I have no idea where she'll go. And to be honest, I don't give a damn. She made her bed and can rest in it. I grew even more certain that she deserved all her problems because of her choices, not revenge. Without me to cushion the pain, she had to face the truth of her betrayal and lies, which had shattered our relationship. I was conscious of my suffering, the insomniac nights, the terror, and the feeling of worthlessness. No one should go through it. I'd also punish Jessica for her actions. If she becomes homeless, she deserves it. That was my last thought, showing how little I cared about her. My parents tried to give my inheritance to their golden daughter, but my grandparents had a surprising twist in store. My parents, especially my dad, have always favored my 26-year-old younger sister Amy over me. This predilection began in our early years and only grew worse as we matured. From my earliest recollections, Amy was the golden child. When I was 5 and she was 2, our parents threw her a lavish birthday party that included a bouncy castle, a petting zoo, and professional face painters. That same year, I celebrated my birthday with a small family dinner and a store-bought cake. This contributed to setting the tone for the ensuing years. As we grew older, the distinctions became more obvious. Amy consistently got the best clothes, the newest gadgets, and the most attention. When I was 10 years old, I remember setting aside months' worth of allowance for a new bike. Amy threw a fit when she saw it because she wanted one too. Instead of teaching her to save or wait, my parents went ahead and bought her a bike that was even better than mine. School was another setting where the bias was apparent. Amy's parents typically missed my school events, but they were at all of hers. In 4th grade, I played the lead in the school play. I was so excited that I practiced for weeks. On the night of the play, my parents were an hour late, so they missed my big scene. Amy complained of a stomachache, so they were comforting her. Later on, she was okay. They had just lost track of time while playing with her. Nothing I ever seemed to do seemed adequate in terms of academics. In middle school, I frequently earned consecutive A's, joined the math club, and even won first place in a regional science fair. My parents barely recognized these accomplishments, but when Amy received a B+ on one test in her weakest subject, they celebrated with a supper and bought her a new phone to encourage her to keep improving. High school in particular was challenging. I engaged in whatever activity I could with the goal of winning their approval. In addition to maintaining a 4.0 GPA, I was the debate team captain and editor of the school newspaper. Amy breezed through school, just maintaining a C average, and she spent a lot of time with her friends. I was selected as one of 2 junior year applicants from our university to take part in a renowned Harvard summer program. I felt wonderful, and it was such an honor. When I broke the news to my dad over dinner, he complained and shifted the conversation to Amy's upcoming dance performance. "That's nice," my mother said, "at least," but she quickly went on. When Amy's concert fell on the day I was leaving Harvard, my parents wanted to see her sing, but they were unable to take me to the airport. I requested a lift from a friend's parents. The process of applying to colleges was another excruciating one. I spent months honing my essays, participating in extracurricular activities, and studying for the SAT. I was accepted to a number of prestigious universities and awarded a substantial scholarship to attend the university of my choice. My parents' response to this, when I brought it up to them over dinner, was hardly bearable. "That's good, but don't let it run to your head. College isn't everything," suggested my dad. My mother added, "Just keep us in mind when you're off becoming a big shot." However, when Amy barely made it through high school and decided against going to college, my parents were very accommodating. They respected her for knowing herself, and for not conforming to social norms. They even bought her a car as a graduation present, which is something they have never done for me. I suffered emotionally as a result of this ongoing partiality. I struggled with anxiety and hopelessness throughout my teens and early 20s. I realized that my parents' behavior was not my fault when I started therapy in college. It took me years to build my self-esteem and learn how to validate myself independently of my parents' approval. Despite the lack of support from my immediate family, I was nevertheless able to live a respectable life. I had a respectable position in finance by the time I graduated with honors from college, and by the time I was 27, I had even bought my own home. My parents aren't, but I'm proud of my achievements. The current drama, then, starts here. My grandfather passed away not too long ago on my dad's side. He was a prosperous businessman who began with nothing and left behind a large estate. According to his will, he divided his assets evenly between his children, parents, and his siblings, as well as his grandchildren, which include myself, Amy, and our cousins. I received a sizable share of the inheritance, about $500,000. It would have enabled me to make investments for the future, settle my school loans, and maybe start my own business in the future. I was pleased with this unexpected windfall and the opportunities it might bring. However, it was evident that my parents were upset when the will was read. They later pulled me aside and told me that they thought it was unfair because I was given an equal share. Amy, who works part-time at a coffee shop and lives in our parents' basement, said that she was in more need of the money because she was in pain. I tried to remain composed despite my shock. I explained that they had no influence over Grandpa's decision-making process. They urged me to behave honorably and give Amy my due share. When I declined, they were furious and started accusing me of being selfish and lacking gratitude. They talked about every instance where they had assisted me that my dad could remember. He prioritized paying for my medically necessary braces, purchasing me the absolute minimum of school supplies, and letting me live at home when I was in college, even though I worked part-time to help with the money. Conveniently, he ignored the fact that they still support Amy at the age of 25, the car they provided her, and the numerous shopping sprees. The situation quickly became more serious. My dad decided to take care of matters himself, acting as the executor of the will. He said he would interpret Grandpa's intentions and give Amy my entire share in addition to her own inheritance. He claimed that if Grandpa had been aware of our particular circumstance, he would have won it. I was shattered. In addition to being clearly against the law, this served as a horrible reminder of how little my parents valued me. I attempted to reason with them by pointing out that Grandpa had always treated all of his grandchildren equally and that he was aware of our situation. My mother then accused me of disparaging the departed by suggesting that Grandpa might have liked something different from what my dad was supporting. When I brought up some recollections of Grandpa encouraging me to pursue my academic and professional ambitions, my parents dismissed them as misrepresentations. They said Grandpa had quietly expressed concern about Amy's future and wanted to make sure she was taken care of. When I questioned them why he hadn't just written the will that way back then, they didn't have an answer. Although Amy felt uncomfortable with the situation, she refrained from criticizing our parents. "Mom and Dad know best," she simply shrugged when I attempted to speak with her alone. It was clear that she would not be of much assistance. I sought advice from my paternal grandmother, Grandpa's widow, feeling deceived and hurt. She was furious when she heard what was going on. She told me that Grandpa had not intended this at all and that my parents had no power to change the will. Grandma supplied some information that makes things clear. My parents reportedly asked Grandpa to leave everything to Amy in his will a number of years ago. Grandpa had adamantly protested, stating that he believed all of his grandchildren should receive the same treatment. In his will, he had even stipulated that anyone contesting the fair distribution would forfeit their share. Armed with this information, I took my folks on. They were shocked when Grandma revealed that they had previously tried to influence the will. My dad tried to defend it by saying they were only considering Amy's future, but I could see the guilt on their faces. Grandmother took immediate action. She contacted her lawyer and other executors of her will. She also contacted my dad's siblings, who were just as outraged by what he was trying as she was. Together, they thwarted my dad's plot and ensured that the terms of the will would be followed. My parents are not thrilled with me, but they had to back off. They accused me of inciting the family against me and contended that I ought to have resolved this internally rather than enlisting outside help. My mother wept because I had lied to them and divided the family. When my dad threatened to completely cut me out of their will, I responded that I had never expected anything from them anyhow. They are now threatening to cut off all contact if I take the inheritance. My father even said that if I were to inherit their home, I would not be allowed to live there. My mother delivered a particularly scathing blow when she said that my taking the money shows that I never really loved them and was only eager to make money off of their death. The extended family is divided on the issue. Some of my cousins are supportive because they recognize the historical partiality and respect my self-advocacy. Some people think that since family unity comes before money, I should have given in to keep the peace. This has caused tension in both my parents' and my dad's relationships, even though my dad's siblings are unquestionably on my side. Amy is caught up in all of this. She told me in private that she is not prepared to confront our parents, even though she feels horrible and didn't ask for this. I don't really blame her because she has been taught her entire life to rely on them and look for their approval. A part of me still wishes she will assist me just once. This situation has evoked a great deal of resentment and pain from the past. I find myself thinking back on all the occasions when Amy was given preference over me, including the birthday parties I missed, the school events my parents skipped, and the unreported accomplishments. It appears that a lifetime of injustice is being brought to a head by this one incident. Despite the fact that the entire situation has generated a great deal of division within the family, I am standing my position and intend to inherit what Grandpa intended. Family gatherings have become awkward, and my parents hardly ever speak to me anymore. For the first time since I could tolerate the accusing looks and chilly shoulders, I skipped our monthly family dinner last week. Despite the chaos, a small part of me feels in control. For the first time in my life, I'm facing my parents' unjust treatment. I'm stating my worth and refusing to be dismissed. It's simultaneously awful and liberating. I believe I'm correct, but I'm exhausted by the family drama. I've started having anxiety episodes again, something I haven't had since college. I am considering going back to therapy in order to help manage all of this stress. Should I have taken my inheritance and refused to live up to my parents' expectations? To keep the peace, should I have just given Amy the cash? I'm tired of being the family scapegoat, but I'm also afraid of losing my family entirely. Any advice or point of view would be greatly appreciated. Update: much has transpired since my initial post half a year ago. I want to express my gratitude to everyone for their advice and support, which really helped me get through difficult times. Let me begin by discussing the legal side of things. I did consult my own lawyer, as many of you suggested. He confirmed that my dad's attempt was unlawful and that I was fully entitled to inherit. He assisted me in documenting everything and prepared me to respond lawfully if necessary. Luckily, that is not how things happened. My grandma and her lawyer, together with my dad's brothers, resolved their differences out of court. The will was executed just as planned, and I received my entire fortune. My dad's attempts at will manipulation resulted in his removal as an executor. This process, which took several weeks, was a little taxing. After threatening legal action, heated meetings, and irate phone calls, my parents were forced to back off since the law was clear. However, the family fallout has been notable and is still going on. My parents first reaffirmed their position. They accused me of neglecting my sister and being greedy. Additionally, they attempted to incite other family members against me by spreading claims that I had somehow forced Grandpa to give me money. Fortunately, the majority of the family was aware of their deceit. There was one particularly terrible incident at a family get-together approximately a month after the will was accepted. My aunt was entertaining and hadn't invited my parents, so they caused a commotion when they showed over without warning. As my dad began to yell that I had stolen from Amy and turned Grandma against her, my mother threw an old photo album right at my feet and said, "I ruined all these wonderful memories." It was awful and uncomfortable. It took a few family members to calm things down and convince my parents to go. My grandmother, bless her, was my strongest ally during this entire ordeal. She told stories of my grandfather, who was always proud of my accomplishments and who particularly wanted to ensure that all of his grandchildren had equal opportunities. She also claimed that Grandpa had kept a scrapbook of my achievements, including copies of my college acceptance letters, media clippings of my academic achievements, and even the program from the university play that my parents had been late for. This realization was both beautiful and heartbreaking. Additionally, Grandma offered to update the family's records. She planned a family get-together without my parents there and detailed the whole history of my parents' prejudice, including incidents I had either completely forgotten or had never heard of. It was heartbreaking to finally have someone acknowledge the injustice I had endured for years, but it also brought up old wounds. In all of this, my sister Amy finally found her voice. After considerable introspection and several lengthy conversations with our grandma, she personally came to me and apologized for not standing up for me earlier. She claimed that although she believed our parents' preference was wrong, she had been too afraid to question it. We talked extensively and passionately about our early years and how they affected us both. Being the favorite child wasn't as amazing as it seemed, Amy acknowledged. She felt a lot of pressure to meet our parents' expectations and never learned how to stand on her own 2 feet. She related stories of how she longed to do things independently, but our parents would step in and take care of everything for her, denying her the chance to grow and learn from her mistakes. This conversation was a turning point in our relationship. We started to repair the sibling bond that our parents' favoritism had severed. Through this family turmoil, the two of us have been getting together for coffee on a regular basis to talk and support one another. Everyone was shocked when she announced that she would use her inheritance to pay for education. She said she was inspired to take charge of her own life after witnessing me defend myself. She first enrolled in a local community college with the intention of transferring to a 4-year university after deciding what she wanted to study. Our parents gasped with surprise. I think they were aware that Amy had not benefited from their babying. My parents' reactions to all of this have been varied and evolving. At first, they viciously attacked us both. Since they claimed I turned Amy against them, they attempted to use guilt to get her to drop out of college in order to support the family. When that didn't work, they changed tactics. My mother started to realize how harmful their behaviors had been after having several lengthy conversations with my grandma and witnessing Amy's remarkable change. She has started therapy to deal with her issues and made some tentative attempts at reconciliation. She apologized, acknowledged that she had been unjust, and asked for an opportunity to make amends. It takes time, and although I'm cautiously optimistic, I'm also setting firm boundaries. Sadly, my dad has been less inclined to take responsibility for his faults. He feels like the victim in all of this and is still quite angry. Since Amy decided to attend college, he has been cold toward her and rarely communicates with me. He has made a few attempts to exert control over us, threatening to sell the house we grew up in if we don't change our ways or offering to forgive us if we do. It hurts to see him alienate himself from both of his children in this way, even if we are both standing strong. The extended family's dynamics have undergone a significant shift. I now reside nearer to my grandma and my dad's siblings, who have been really supportive. I feel less alone in this battle now that I've heard from my aunts and uncles about how they've dealt with my dad's difficult behavior throughout the years. I've also grown closer to some of my cousins who supported me. We can all catch up without being distracted by the drama of the older generations by starting a monthly cousin supper. I have been using my inheritance well for myself. I feel incredibly financially free now that I have paid off my student loans. I have put together a diverse investment portfolio in collaboration with a financial advisor. Additionally, I have some money saved up for the possibility of starting my own business in the future. I'm looking into starting a community center that offers affordable mental health services and courses on financial literacy. The most important use of the funds, however, has been for me to purchase therapy for myself and offer to do the same for Amy. We are both trying to move past the things that happened to us as children and are learning how to set healthy boundaries with our parents. Even though it's a long path, I already feel like I'm learning more and getting better at overcoming long-term bias and emotional neglect. My life has improved in some surprisingly positive ways as a result of this entire process. I've learned a lot about setting boundaries and protecting myself. Even though I know I made the correct decision, it hasn't always been simple, and there are still challenging days. I'm proud of myself for defying pressure and guilt. One of the most surprising outcomes has been a shift in my career path. Managing all of this family strife and going to treatment has made it easier for me to recognize my own enthusiasm for helping those suffering. Having to deal with all of this dysfunction in my family and going to therapy has made me realize how motivated I am to help people who have experienced similar family dynamics. I'm currently considering going back to school to work as a family therapist and specialize in adult children of emotionally immature parents. I've also been working at a local juvenile facility, where I've been helping kids from difficult family situations. It is incredibly fulfilling to be able to provide the kind of support and encouragement I wish I had received as a child. I'm even thinking of spending some of my fortune to start a scholarship fund for kids in similar situations. My communication with Amy has continued to improve. Every month, we celebrate Siblings Day by doing something fun for the two of us. Last month's hike and lunch was the most relaxed and intimate we've experienced since we were young kids. We are slowly re-establishing our relationship on our own terms, free from the influence of our parents. Things with my parents are still difficult. My mom has been working to mend our connection. She has been going to therapy on a regular basis and has even started to see some of the harm caused by her bias. During a few one-on-one lunches, we have discussed our past and future goals in an open and difficult manner. It's not perfect, but there has been progress. But my dad is still against change. He continues to claim that he did nothing wrong and that Amy and I should be grateful. He skipped a number of family events since he won't be in the same room as me. I'm attempting to let go of my need to force him to change his perspective or regulate his responses, even though it hurts. Grandma has become a rock for Amy and me. She has also been telling us more stories about our grandfather, who was proud of us for standing up for ourselves. She has been an excellent mediator in family disputes because she consistently advocates for fairness and understanding. Many lessons on the true meaning of family have been taught during the entire process. I've realized that sometimes the family you choose may be more supportive than the one you grew up in. I have become closer to my aunts, uncles, and cousins who supported me over this trip, in addition to creating a close-knit group of friends who have been very beneficial. I've also grown to realize how important it is to set boundaries and take care of myself. I'm getting better at saying no to situations that endanger my mental health, and I no longer feel guilty about prioritizing my own well-being. I had always put off exploring new interests and hobbies because I was so focused on trying to win my parents' approval. I would like to advise people in similar situations to not allow anyone to make them feel guilty about obtaining what is rightfully theirs. It's fair to protect yourself, even if it causes controversy. Despite the complexity of family dynamics, you deserve to be treated fairly. Never forget that it's never too late to start living the life you deserve. If required, seek therapy. Surround yourself with supportive people. And don't be afraid to set boundaries. Your value is determined by who you are, not by how your family treats you. Again, I want to thank all of you for your encouragement and suggestions. It meant more than you would have realized during a really difficult time. Even though the path has not been easy, I am looking forward to the future and feel a level of confidence that I have not had in years. I'm eager to see where this new phase of my life will take me, and I'm determined to break the pattern of partiality and improve the connections in my own future family. I flew halfway across the world to meet my online girlfriend after a year of daily chats, but she panicked and left me alone most of the trip. After a year of daily phone chats, I took a plane overseas to see my internet girlfriend. However, she suffered from panic episodes when we first met, forcing me to spend hours every day by myself in my hotel, until I was forced to leave. Since I honestly don't know what to think anymore, I, 29 male, need to get this off my chest. For backstory, I met this girl, 29 female, a few years ago in a Discord server where we both played a game thanks to some online pals. We immediately clicked since we had similar hobbies and senses of humor, and I was astonished by her professional ambition. She is quite passionate about her work, which is tech-related, I don't want to be too specific, and she is constantly discussing projects and other relevant topics. We increased the frequency of our conversations, and eventually we were chatting for hours every day. We occasionally had phone chats with other people, but once everyone else left, we would continue to talk until around 3 in the morning. To be honest, it didn't feel like the previous internet connections I had. One evening, when discussing films we enjoyed, we discovered that our tastes were nearly the same. We began using one of those sync services to watch content together. When she informed me she had feelings for me early last year, everything changed. She kind of blurted it out when we were on a video conversation, saying she had been feeling that way for some time but was afraid to speak because of the distance. We had been flirting a little, so I wasn't entirely shocked when I informed her that I was also intrigued. Our internet time together increased even further. Sometimes she would even hold her phone up so we could communicate digitally while she was cooking or doing anything else. Before deeming us official, I ought to have been more explicit about what I required, but I was in the heat of the moment. Even through a screen, there seemed to be a very unique vibe between us that is difficult to describe. To be honest, I hadn't connected with someone like that in a long time. Where I live, I've had a very blank dating life. It wasn't long before she began calling me her boyfriend in conversations with others close to her. She would tell me stories about how her mother would inquire about me, or how she would bring me up to her coworkers. Examples such as, "My boyfriend said the funniest thing today," or, "My boyfriend and I are going to see this movie this weekend." These statements were flattering, but I always believed that we needed to meet in person before formally committing to a relationship. However, it was definitely a mistake on my part that I never really corrected her. I suppose I assumed we would meet soon enough, and didn't want to offend her. We discussed getting together several times. She takes medication for a chronic health condition, and has rather severe anxiety difficulties. Although it makes traveling difficult, it doesn't truly affect her day-to-day existence. We decided that seeing her in Canada would be more sensible for me than having her visit the United States. Additionally, it's not exactly stress-free to cross the border with all the political outgrass going on right now. I won't get into politics here, but it's true that crossing borders is more difficult these days. I made the bold decision to plan a trip to see her around Christmas. Flights and a hotel cost far more than I should have, but I thought it would be worth it. Due to the short notice, the flights alone cost over $700, and the accommodation for 3 nights cost an additional $600. To be honest, I could hardly afford it. However, I had been saving for some time and felt that this was crucial. After all this time of communicating, I was rather eager to finally see her in person. In the days before the trip, we discussed it virtually daily. She also appeared excited, however she admitted to being anxious about her nervousness getting the better of her. When we first met, she informed me she had been discussing anxiety management techniques with her therapist. That gave me hope that she was making preparations to ensure the visit would be successful. She even compiled a list of the locations in her city that she wished to show me. I had every reason to believe she was as excited about this as I was, as we discussed visiting a museum she loves, and a few places she thought I might enjoy. I just got back from that trip this past weekend, and I'm still getting used to it. Actually, I've spent the majority of my frigging time here in my hotel room, where I'm composing this. I flew all this way to see the city, but I have hardly seen it yet. The trip got off to a rough start. After landing, I took a 40-minute Uber to my hotel, which cost about $60 because, of course, everything in this place is pricey. I was anxious as well. I've only visited Canada a few times. I've never been to this city, and I was going to meet someone I'd only ever seen on a screen. The entire Uber ride made me feel nauseous. She was replying to my constant texts with updates on my whereabouts, but they came out as hurried and tense. Since I was also anxious, I assumed she must be experiencing even more worry, so I made an effort to be understanding. I assumed she would be prepared to meet when I arrived at the hotel. She lives about 5 minutes away from my lodging. Even though that hotel was more expensive than others, that was one of the reasons I chose it. She had said that staying nearby would make things easier for her. I messaged her to let her know I was ready anytime she was, checked in, and showered a little. I waited after that. She texted me instead of coming over, stating she needed more time since her anxiety was so bad. I made an effort to be sympathetic. I was aware of the seriousness of her concern. However, it took her an additional 2 hours to summon the bravery to visit me. I was sitting in my hotel room, checking the window every now and again, wondering if this whole trip had been a mistake. I attempted to watch TV, but I was unable to concentrate. At one point, my flight had been so early that I nearly fell asleep. She was actually trembling and crying, like sobbing, when she eventually arrived. It felt weird at first when I went down to the lobby to meet her. I sensed her trembling as we hugged. The fact that everyone in the foyer was staring at us added to the unease. She nodded when I proposed that we head up to my room so she could relax in peace. She sobbed for about 10 minutes straight while sitting on the edge of the bed in my room. Other than sitting next to her and giving her the occasional pat back, I had no idea what to do. She nodded when I asked if she wanted any water, so I retrieved some from the bathroom sink. She apologized perhaps 20 times after appearing to cool down a little. She insisted that she had been all right until she really had to come meet me, and that she had no idea why she was feeling so nervous. After a while, she appeared to be well enough for us to speak. At first it was awkward, not at all like our casual online chats. But after a half hour or so, she proposed that we visit her. There, she claimed, I would be able to meet her brother, and she would feel more at ease. She and her brother reside in a modest home approximately 5 minutes drive from my hotel. Her brother appeared to be a cool, amiable, gaming kind of guy. They also have a very adorable black cat who insisted on attempting to sit on my lap. As I had anticipated from our video talks, their apartment was tidy, yet lived in. Even though we spent some time hanging out at their apartment, she remained really nervous the entire time. Sometimes she would get silent, and I would catch her staring at nothing, as if she were deep in meditation. Her brother made an effort to assist by carrying on the discussion and inquiring about my flight, job, and other matters. Although it was kind of him, I became aware that I was speaking to him more than to her. She stated she was too anxious to drive, but she did say she wanted to take me around and show me parts of the city. She stated she was feeling too overwhelmed, and that perhaps tomorrow would be a better time. But I did suggest that perhaps we should all go, with her brother driving. She simply phoned me by Uber to return to my hotel at the end. Total time spent together on the first day, no more than 3 or 4 hours. She spent the majority of that time there with her brother as well. Around 9 o'clock, I returned to my hotel room and just collapsed. I was worn out after the day's emotional roller coaster and the journey. In addition, I had been awake since around 4 a.m. for my journey. She replied, "Sleep well. Sorry today was rough. Tomorrow will be better, I promise." I tried to concentrate on that promise as I drifted off to sleep after sending her a good night text. I got up really early the following day. I don't know, jet lag or whatever. I had nothing to do at around 7 in the morning. She normally sleeps in because she works nights, but I was just waiting to hear from her while I sat in my hotel. Despite my hunger, I didn't want to go too far for fear of receiving a message from her. In the end, I ate a terrible and expensive breakfast at the hotel restaurant. I just waited and waited after that. I took a shower, watched TV, browsed social media, and made a quick call to my mother. She eventually messages me 4 hours later to let me know that she's awake but not quite ready to see me, because she's still feeling nervous. She said that she simply needed some time when I asked if there was anything I could do to help. I thought there might be less pressure if we met in a public place rather than her coming to the hotel. "Maybe," she responded, "but I'm not sure yet." Said she would notify me shortly. I tried not to show my frustration at this point, but I was becoming rather annoyed. In order to have something to do, I decided to pick up some items from the drugstore that was within walking distance. I bought some Tylenol because I was about to have a headache, some food, and a portable toothbrush because I had forgotten mine. I was mostly simply passing the time. I discovered a small lunch area close by after spending far more time than was required exploring the pharmacy. Perhaps bringing her something to eat would be a kind gesture, so I thought I could get lunch for the two of us. After getting sandwiches for the two of us, I returned to the hotel to leave my belongings before visiting her. I messaged her to let her know that I had gone to get lunch and to ask if I could come over right now. After 15 minutes or so, she responded, "Sure, I could come over." I took the food to her apartment after calling an Uber. We were about halfway through day 2 when I eventually arrived at her apartment, which was approximately 2 hours later, and she hadn't even eaten the food I had brought. She thanked me for thinking of her, but claimed she wasn't hungry. I made an effort to hide my dismay. At least it wasn't wasted because her brother took the second sandwich. We spent some time sitting in their living room chit-chatting. She appeared slightly less nervous than she had been the day before, but not entirely at ease. She tells me that she, her brother and I, are going to a get-together with a number of their friends, just as I was beginning to believe that perhaps we could actually do something together. I came all this way to spend time with her, so I was a little taken aback, but I reasoned that maybe having other people there might make her feel more at ease. She replied that we would only be there for a few hours when I questioned how long. She replied that it was at her friend's house, which is a bit outside of the city, when I inquired where it was. I was disappointed, even though I attempted to appear excited about it. I had not anticipated our first actual day together looking like this. The drive there took roughly an hour in the end. I sat in the rear and she sat in the passenger seat while her brother drove. For most of the ride they discussed people I didn't know and inside jokes that I wasn't involved in. She would sometimes attempt to explain things to me, but it was never the same. I primarily just took in the vista outside the window, which was rather pleasant. There were about 10 people at her friend's house when we arrived. In fact, all of her friends were incredibly kind and hospitable. They were all aware of me. She had apparently been discussing this visit for weeks. She introduced me to everyone as her boyfriend, and it felt perfectly acceptable. It was a good celebration. Good food, a few beverages, and people playing board and video games. Everyone was polite and constantly approached me to chat. After hearing so much about me, a number of individuals expressed their happiness at finally meeting me. According to one female, "She never shuts up about you." Which, considering how little time we'd really spent together since I came, was both flattering and perplexing. Although we didn't really converse much, we stayed there for the majority of the night. She was off playing games with someone else or dragging me into discussions with her pals all the time. It was strange. We were usually in different areas of the room, despite my repeated attempts to stand close to her or get her attention. At 10 o'clock at night, we finally began to return. Given that she typically stays up until 3 or 4 in the morning, I assumed we would still have plenty of time to spend together. Perhaps we could just sit and chat like we used to do online, or we could watch one of those movies we were always discussing. She then asks her brother in the car if she can drive me to my hotel before they leave for home. According to her brother, "Sure." I'm sitting there in disbelief. She just met her boyfriend in person, who went across the country to see her, but she's too exhausted to spend any real time with him. When she glanced back at me for confirmation, I said, "Sure, that's fine," because I had no idea what else to say. Most of the drive back to my motel was quiet. She mentioned her anxiousness had been playing up more than usual lately, and once apologized for being so strange. It wasn't actually okay, but I told her it was. Could I say anything else? I couldn't really make her want to hang out with me. She said goodbye with a short hug and promised to text me in the morning when we arrived at my hotel. I felt completely whack when I went up to my room. After another few hours of hardly communicating on day 2, I began to believe that this entire vacation had been a huge mistake. Thus I find myself back in the hotel room, completely bewildered and alone. Even though my girlfriend is only a few minutes away, I'm alone in a strange country, and haven't really spent any time with her alone. I attempted to watch a movie on my laptop but was unable to concentrate. I ended up aimlessly browsing social media until around 1 in the morning. I was concerned that texting her about it might exacerbate her worry, so I refrained from doing so. However, I was also at a loss about what to do. I felt like I had met everyone in her life except for my real girlfriend by the time I was scheduled to have dinner with her family the following evening. I eventually texted her to let her know how I was feeling. I tried to be straightforward but gentle. I acknowledged that worry was difficult, but I was disappointed that we hadn't been able to spend more time together. I brought up the fact that I had come all this way to visit her, and that it bothered me that she seemed more at ease with me in public than with me alone. I made it clear that I was merely perplexed and a little depressed about the circumstance, not angry with her. When she finally reacted, it was a wall of text and took over 20 minutes. She apologized profusely, stating that she wanted to make the trip worthwhile for me, but was simply too exhausted, and that her anxiety was still through the sky. She made an effort to reassure me that she still had a strong interest in me, but she claimed that she is too anxious, and that nothing would happen if we were by ourselves. It seems that this is difficult for her because she hasn't been in a relationship for a few years. She clarified that when there are other people present, she feels more at ease since she is not under as much pressure to be fascinating or amusing. Claimed that she is constantly concerned that I am evaluating her, or contrasting her with her online persona. She added that she fears physical contact after a long period of time, and worries that I have unrealistic expectations for her. I informed her that there are several steps between an embrace and anything more serious, and that I wasn't anticipating anything intimate or physical. In fact, I haven't even given her a hug this trip. I simply wanted to talk to you and hang out with you like we do online for some real quality time. I told her that I wasn't traveling this far for sex. I finally got to meet the person I've been corresponding with for months. That appeared to relieve her, and she said that after meeting her mother, we would spend some time together. She mentioned that her mother was very excited to see me and that perhaps we could return to my hotel to watch a movie or something after supper. I accepted the plan since it seemed better than nothing. That night I couldn't sleep. I continued to reflect on the entire circumstance and question whether I had made a grave error in interacting with someone who suffered from such extreme anxiety. That seems harsh, and I don't blame her for having mental health problems. That's not her fault. But I began to question if I could handle the difficulties of a long-distance relationship. My last day here is today. Tomorrow morning I will depart early. This entire trip has seemed like a huge waste of both money and effort. Instead of spending most of my visit sitting by myself in a hotel room, I wanted to spend time with her. Since we don't have much time together, I genuinely assumed she would want to spend every moment with me. We've been discussing this vacation for a while, so I thought it would be rather different. After this, I'm not sure if this relationship can last. Am I going overboard? I understand that anxiety does exist, yet it seems pointless that I've come this far. Update. Several days have passed since my return, and because many people have been inquiring about what transpired, I thought I should provide an update. In the comments, several of you were really critical. Yes, I am aware that anxiety is a real illness. I am not a sex-crazed guy who was merely attempting to hook up. Furthermore, I don't believe she was taking advantage of me or anything similar. You folks come up with some crazy hypotheses. For those who are wondering why I didn't just go explore the city by myself, the answer is that I did some exploring, but it wasn't the main goal. I wasn't a tourist who traveled so far. To spend time with her, I went. In any case, I made the initial post on the last day of the trip after waking up quite early. After that, I anxiously awaited her message. Once more I didn't hear from her for a few hours. When she did text, it was a bit after noon. I had been up since about 8 o'clock, so I spent an additional 4 hours sitting in my hotel room, checking my phone like a teen in love every few minutes. She said I could take an Uber to her apartment at any time, and reminded me that we had supper with her mother later that day. Many of you advised me to simply call off the dinner plans, but I chose to go ahead and see how things worked out. I mean, I might as well meet her mother since I'd already traveled this far. I quickly showered, changed into my clothes, and went to her house. After the previous days, I was a little nervous, but I tried to remain optimistic. It was a pleasant difference that her brother was out when I arrived. Although she still appeared a little anxious, she was unquestionably less anxious than before. In fact, we watched things together for a while. We sat side by side on her couch after she recommended the show she had been eager to see with me. We sat close and it felt more like the quality time I had been hoping for, because she looked to be having a better day in terms of anxiety. It was pleasant that she even leaned slightly against me. We didn't actually engage in any physical activity. After some time, her brother returned home, although it was unquestionably better than the days before. She told me more about her friend's remarks about us at the party, and we discussed some of them. It sounded more like our internet chats. We began preparing to go have dinner with her mother at around 5 o'clock. This caused me some anxiety. It's usually a huge deal to meet the parents, and I wasn't sure what to anticipate considering how the journey had gone so far. I could sense that she was agitated once more as she drove us to the restaurant. I made an effort to divert her attention by keeping the conversation light. It was a charming, tiny Italian restaurant. When we got there, her mother was already there. As soon as she noticed us, she got up and hugged her daughter before turning to grin warmly at me. They have the same eyes, so I could tell right away where my girlfriend acquired her appearance. Her mother's dinner went unexpectedly well. Her mother was approachable and inquired about my work and family without being overbearing. Her mother looked sincere in her excitement about me and her daughter being together, and we clicked immediately. My partner appeared more at ease throughout dinner than I had observed throughout the entire trip. She was grinning, contributing to the discussion, and even putting her hand on my arm to emphasize a point. When we left, her mother hugged me, which was wonderful, and said I could come over at any moment. Even though I wasn't sure whether there would be another time at that moment, it felt good. We returned to her apartment after dinner. Although her brother was present, it felt more private because he tended to stay in his room. It was much the same as before. Hanging out, talking, and watching things. It felt more one-on-one than before, yet it wasn't quite alone time. Was this trip's final day what I had anticipated? Not at all. However, it was unquestionably superior to the initial days. She offered to drive me back herself, which surprised me because I was half expecting her to call me an Uber again as the evening wore on. It seemed like a minor triumph. We discussed the trip on the way back. I made an effort to be understanding when she apologized once more for the way things had gone. She acknowledged that I wished we had more time, like today, and suggested that since the first meeting was over, perhaps next time would be simpler. She accompanied me to my room when we arrived at my hotel. She assisted me in making sure I hadn't left anything in the bathroom or drawers when I was packing for the early departure. Despite its simplicity, it had an intimate feel that most of the tour had not. We kissed goodbye as she was ready to go. Just a good kiss goodbye. Nothing fancy. No makeout. It was short but sweet, and it got me thinking about what the journey may have been like if we had arrived at that moment sooner. After she went, we exchanged a few texts. She stated she wished we'd spent more time together, and I was getting ready for bed because my flight was so early. She said that although she had purchased a frame for a photograph of us, she had come to the realization that we hadn't really taken any quality group photos. The handful we had from the weekend didn't really fit her needs because they were primarily group photos from the party. That really disappointed me, so I suggested that perhaps I should simply take an Uber back, so I could get a decent photo. After 10 minutes or so without hearing back, I assumed she had either fallen asleep or became distracted. Then she texted me out of the blue to tell me to come downstairs. She explained that she had driven all the way back to the hotel. Anxiety be damned, she said. Just to take a picture and kiss me goodbye. At first I didn't understand. She was indeed in the lobby as I rushed downstairs. In addition to taking selfies, we also asked the night cashier to take a few group photos. Then we kissed again, more deeply this time. She gave me a tight hug, and said in a whisper that she was happy I came, but that the weekend wasn't what we had expected. Of the entire visit, that particular moment at the conclusion felt the most genuine and connected. I got up really early the following morning in preparation for my journey. Shortly after returning home, she must have texted me to wish me a safe journey. The return trip went well, giving us plenty of time to reflect about what had transpired, and what it meant for us moving forward. Overall, I'm going to maintain my optimism, even though it wasn't the ideal weekend I had hoped for. I believe that the decision to shorten the vacation was probably a mistake. Given her anxiety problems, 3 days isn't really enough time to get to know someone. Perhaps the last several days could have resembled that last night more if we had had a week. Since I returned, we've texted daily, and it's been nice to get back to our casual discussions. I've tried to be encouraging without being pushy, and she's been more forthcoming about her anxiety and the things that make it worse. In their upcoming appointments, she stated that her therapist wants to focus exclusively on her relationship anxiety, which seems like a good start. When she has to choose whether or not to travel down here for an event that is taking place sometime this summer, we'll see how things work out. I believe that will be the true test. I'm going to have to reevaluate if this can work in the long run, if she can't bring herself to come see me. However, there may be hope for us if she manages to make the trip, and things turn out better than they did this time. To address a few points raised in the comments, she does take medication and see a therapist, albeit a very new one. She has struggled with anxiety for many years, and it won't go away on its own. I wouldn't often be interested in a long-distance relationship, but our personalities and hobbies complement each other in ways that I don't often find with others in my area. And to everyone who thinks I'm being foolish or naive, well, maybe I am. I think that people should be given second chances, particularly when it comes to mental health. She wasn't attempting to ruin the weekend, really. She was obviously dealing with a serious and challenging issue. Whether we can discover a path forward that benefits us both is the question. I appreciate all of the feedback and suggestions on the first post. The next trip is in approximately 2 to 4 months, so I'm not sure whether I'll update again, but then I'll know for sure whether this can work or not. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.